Niech pan spojrzy na to drzewo. Niech pan spróbuje je teraz przesadzić na inne ziemię. Zobaczymy, czy się przyjmie.
Kim jestem? Psy nie znają języka słów. Jestem wiłem z gór Tator.
Hey everyone, hey Audrey Stardust, and hello to Catgirl Steph. It's lovely to see you here. We will be starting shortly.
O, zalew,
Woda. Co to za ptaszek?
zalew, sikorka i roślinność morska, jest woda. Drzewo, patrzcie, drzewo to jest chyba Bóg.
Hey everyone, welcome to the stream. It's so good to see everyone here. Vodrella, hello. Hey to Anna Maroon, hey to Valerie Valkyrie, and Weirdo of Oz. Let's get it properly started. My hair's a weird shape. Does anyone else have this? Like your hair is just not the shape that you want it to be and it's just like really, really bothering you. And it's just like, surely my hair must settle into a shape that people find like at least not so despicable that they want to kill me with swords. At least most of the time. So I probably shouldn't worry about it too much. Like I don't think my hair actually like turns into some kind of like offensive to the eye shape. But to my eye, absolutely. Hey to Wintry Mute and to Femboy Frankenstein. Lovely to have you both here. We are going to dive right in by looking at some VOD comments from the lovely VOD watchers, the best people on earth, the best people to ever do it. The VOD watchers, we love you. Hi VOD watchers, it's so wonderful to see you. Consider paying for the stream if you're enjoying the stream post-stream, but you know, like you shouldn't have to consider it as much as the live chat, obviously, for obvious reasons I don't need to get into. We already understand. Yeah, so there's some lovely like thoughtful comments. This is the benefit of people like having the time to kind of formulate a long post and like reflect on what's going on with the stuff. Is we wind up with some interesting views on the content. So the last stream, unfortunately, was broken into 2 VODs, but it was called The Betrayal of Wombo's Oath. I don't need to explain that, that's self-explanatory. And we looked at Ezra Klein doing an interview with Ta-Nehisi Coates and admitting that he doesn't know what his role is anymore. And yeah, I've been reflecting on it a lot in the last couple of weeks, and today we are going to be looking at some Helen Lewis articles in The Atlantic. It's going to be a bit of a Helen Lewis fest, which I don't think I'll do again, because I don't really, think her writing is very good. But also, she's not really prominent enough to kind of be the main focus of something in the way that, Ezra Klein is or whatever. Even though, to be fair to her, she is the editor of the New Statesman, so she's pretty high up in the sordid ranks of liberal slop producers. Out of context, am I understanding that acronym correctly, OOC? Out of context, are you ever gonna make more Monster Men vids? Monster Men 6 is planned explicitly for early 2026. It's on the way, it's happening. It is a thing I'm going to do. I know some of the filming I'm going to do for it involves some travel to locations, quite fun. Yes, Monster Men is out of curiosity, not context. Gotcha, right. More Monster Men is on the way, and I have to get through a couple of projects first. You know what, I'll go back to full screen because we're not talking about the comments right now. I have to get through some other stuff first, so I've got a video about trans organizing that I'm going to film and hopefully release in the next week or 2, which is not a video essay at all. It's just a project where I really think it's urgent to get across the idea of how a democratic public assembly could benefit the trans community and how structures could layer up to make something really politically meaningful. And I just want to get it out basically and get it across to the right people who can take my advice on it and start doing stuff. One of the people who I sent the script to proofread has just said, yes, I'm going to start setting up a trans assembly where I am immediately, which is really exciting to me, and not at all surprising because she's one of my most motivated organizer friends. She just we've had this before actually, where I've said I think this is a pretty good idea. I wish more people would do this, and she just started doing it, and more successfully than anyone else I know. So that's cool. I'm doing a project called The Mad and the Mentally Ill. It's a similar kind of scope, over an hour, possibly 2 hours, kind of feature-length video essay, to similar to The World Is Not Ending, Conspiracy on the Left. And it's been a long time coming. I've been working on it. I've had mental health problems my whole life, and it's a long journey moving through them. It's a lifelong journey moving through them, and understanding madness and mental illness, which I've increasingly come to understand as separate but related concepts. And I think that in terms of organizing, we are only going to have more mentally unwell people who we need to organize with, and so we need to confront some truths about how those things work in order to get there. When that's done, I'll go straight on to Monster Men 6. That's the plan. So Monster Men 6 is only a couple steps away in the pipeline. The only complicating factor is I'm also working on the ZAD documentary for Red Planet. Everyone please watch Red Planet. If you don't know about Red Planet, I'll tell you right now. Red Planet is a weekly show that happens on Sundays. It's a little panel discussion with me and Tim and Mule, and basically, and sometimes we have guests who are activists or organizers, sometimes other content creators, and it's just about how the worldwide revolution is going, which makes me sound like a very dry old Marxist, or a crusty, to be that's my podcast, that's what I talk about. But that's the times we live in, and what we need to be thinking about what organizing tactics work and will help to liberate people. So please check that out, and also subscribe to the Patreon because we've got this ZAD doc coming up, and ask me as many questions as you like about the ZAD doc. Now we're going to look at the comments. So Row the Lion says, Petro's speech had me choking up way more than I expected possible. He was just saying all the things and legitimately giving me hope. Opening up to international volunteers for the army to save the world was it for me. Just like, this stuff needs to be heard. It's zero mystery why it isn't. When people around me in South Africa say the situation in America is terrible and surely can't continue, I tell them that the only logical outcome is revolution because the American people, the living youth of America, has reached a breaking point. This is not the sort of system that can relax into neutrality, not anymore, not after Gaza, no, not after the mask of capital was permanently taken off, laid on the side table to ceaselessly murder the most innocent, the most beloved, the most human among us. Absolutely, the fall of Gaza is the fall of humanity, and even without those words, the youth of the world can feel that truth. And I think that somehow revolutionary spirit is going to bubble up, stronger than capital ever thought possible. I just hope it's soon enough to stop the collapse. Great comment. You know, this is like, these are all sentiments I've felt before. In terms of the, yeah, like, to specify, right, we're talking about the climate collapse because we want, like, life to be able to continue on Earth. The collapse of the American empire is simply happening. It's simply underway. De-dollarization is through the roof, baby. Okay, so this is more specifically on the content of last time. Oh, speaking of Petro's speech, though, once again, everyone should go check that out. The address that Gustavo Petro, president of Colombia, gave to the UN Hague group was fantastic, and we watched it last time, and I put a link to the speech in the description of the VOD. And I also have a Tumblr friend who speaks Spanish and is endeavoring to translate it so we can have an English language translation, which I at least will definitely end up quoting from in future essays and trying to push the points of his speech. And I hope that others can benefit from, a translation as well. I think Ezra's dilemma here is that he is realizing his role is to soothe liberal guilt over the fact they believe chasing and holding power is more important than having principles or morals, and he is becoming less able to soothe that guilt in himself. He does know his role, he just doesn't want to admit what it is. This is interesting. I'm not totally sure. I'm not 100% convinced. I think it's like, yes, when we were doing liberal slop streams in 2023, I was very, very, very keen on the concept of systematics, as opposed to understanding things systemically, understanding them systematically, like how processes happen in real time to produce results that align with a system and tell us things about the system without the participants fully understanding it. And I think that Ezra Klein and other liberal slop writers, this is a very interesting study in the production of American liberal intelligentsia commentariat culture, like whatever you want to call the kind of classes of people that Atlantic and New York Times writers are in. I think that, what's the best way to explain it? I've been saying a lot recently, the problem with we want our treats, this whole thing people say about eco-socialism isn't going to work because you tell people they can't have an imported banana all year round, they're going to say, no, I want my treats, and they will refuse it. And I don't think that's true. I think most people actually wouldn't care that much if you're like, climate change will mean we won't have bananas anyway, so we're going to stop being able to ship bananas everywhere, and they're going to become a much rarer thing as an imported commodity. Most people will be like, I mean, if polled, they might be like, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to let that happen. But in reality, they're not going to take up arms about it. People don't care that much. But the people who could be using their platforms to profess eco-socialist policy, they are the ones who want the treats, right? Those are the ones who don't want to give up the treats and don't want to profess policies that would mean giving up the treats, and they write themselves this check, right, that they can just cash over and over again, infinitely evergreen check of other people want their treats too much, other people are too reactionary, too stupid, too hateful, too selfish, too greedy, but everyone's always talking about themselves, and so they're saying, people, Americans, for example, won't give up their treats, and it means no, the person saying this won't give up their treats. I don't think that the average person will have that much trouble, like, transitioning as a consumer to an eco-socialist economy, actually. Even if it meant most people have to be vegan most of the time, actually. It's like, so the thing, that structure, that kind of logical structure is systematically what happens with liberal like think pieces and opinion pieces and these political takes. They are there saying, I've analyzed the political situation with my, like mind palace numbers shooting everywhere. I've analyzed it carefully and come to the conclusion these policies will not succeed. And it's like there's a subconscious sort of repression almost, where they just like can't quite confront what's going on there. So like in one sense, I really agree with Ryan Phillips's comment here. Let's get it back up. Ryan Phillips's comment here, he does know what his role is, he just doesn't want to admit what it is. Whether his role is to soothe liberal guilt over the fact they believe chasing and holding power is more important than having principles or morals, I guess that's one way to put it. I don't hate that. Omega362 says, I think the thing that Ezra Klein doesn't realize is that by running candidates that disagree with him, they will continue to disagree with him when they're in office. He's advocating for building power without any real attempt to change anything. And I think he understands that implicitly. I think he knows that his role is to enforce the status quo, but he very much doesn't want to have that role. But that's just my thoughts and largely agreeing with what you're saying. There was definitely one down here. Yep. Mini Hood, great comment here from Mini Hood 31770, saying, separating the question of what I believe from what I believe will win power. Win power to do what? Not protect abortion rights, not protect trans people, not protect black people. What is this power you want for? He wants to protect his class while working so hard to not recognize that that's what he's doing, because it would be ontologically harmful for him to do so, and he's privileged enough that he can afford the mental gymnastics to avoid confronting this truth. Yeah, I like that comment a lot. Those are all great comments. Thanks, VOD watchers. We love you. You're the best. And I think it's worth revisiting. I mean, like, people who are long-time watchers and have taken on board what I'm saying, this is repeating myself, but Marx's phrase for ideology that Zizek loves to talk about is Sie wissen das nicht, aber sie tun es, which means they don't know what it is, but they are still doing it. And that's how ideology functions, right? People can profess that they have whatever kind of value, but if their material actions contribute to the goals of an ideology, that's what they're doing. Like, it doesn't matter what they profess their ideology is. And, what was it? Just this weekend, I heard about someone who works for a massive online gambling company and, like, gives a bit of their income to the charity Gamble Aware. Like this kind of like, this is the thing I believe, but it's like, that is at least them giving their money towards it. But it's like the majority of their efforts, their labor, their day job is towards the casino. So it's always important to understand when we're talking through these articles and how bizarre and self-contradictory or like detached from reality they are. They are operating through a veil onto the world where, like, they think that they are, as intellectuals, a sort of intangible spectral observer who is just floating through whatever topic, not really touching it, just giving their, like, powerful big brain thoughts, and and they can't see themselves as governed by any kind of ideology. But that, the number one thing that ideology does is seek to make itself invisible, so who can fully see themselves as governed by any kind of ideology? There have been times in the past, for me certainly, like the last, I'd say like the first couple of years of my transition, I was definitely someone who's going around and saying, there's no such thing as trans ideology, stop saying we're trying to fight trans ideology, our ideology is just to exist. And I didn't see anything I thought that was 100% and entirely sound. And it's not that I have since started thinking like, oh no, there is actually a trans agenda and it's really sinister or whatever. But just that like I've accepted that like there is actually an ideological, social, you know, an imaginative or oh my goodness, a socio-ideological organism around trans people that has certain like defenses that it puts up and certain like talking points people go for, and sometimes they shift and change, and like that's okay. Like morally the drive ultimately is, it is true to say like, you know, our agenda is to just live and to just exist, and it's okay to say that. But like still there is like ideology governing people's behavior. There will be people who, I don't know, just know fuck all about trans people and say something just dumb, and it's really just dumb. And then like 10,000 people will start calling them like a TERF specifically. And it's like, I don't think that's what's going on here, and this person has no like known associations to TERFs. And then you watch the TERF cult do its thing where they like love bomb them and pull them in and say like, oh, we love you so much, thank you for defending free speech. And you're like, ah, fuck. If only there were like trans people in that person's life instead of TERFs. But this is, you know, how an institutional capture works, is that the bigoted views of the ruling class, you know, are shared with each other in spaces of money and wealth and power and privilege. Anyway, speaking of people who are less explicitly, rabidly transphobic, but have still definitely been sucked into the anti-trans project, today we're going to be looking at some pieces by Helen Lewis. Oh, Catgirl Steph, thank you so much for tipping £10 and saying meow nyan :3. We here on the stream are doing a stream. It's a big concept, but basically, chat, what's happening is that I'm doing a job right now and performing labor, hopefully to earn money. It's nice when I get paid for doing my job. So you can, if you're enjoying the stream, pay for the stream by subscribing, cheering, or donating directly using command tip. So bear in mind, if you're enjoying the stream, you could pay for the stream. You could also go to my Patreon if you want to just become a patron and give me money regularly. And I really appreciate that, and it would help me to do all my work, actually. Right. We are going to be looking at... Sorry, it's actually really funny. I'm going to try and keep this stream like relatively short, because like I have had a bit of a shit last couple of weeks. Like, it's been a bit rough. I talked in some places about what's been going on, but as a result of just some shit, I've been quite depressed. I don't want to go for too long. We're going to read a few articles here, the longest of which, and it's the one we're building up to, is called I watched Stand Up in Saudi Arabia. What the surreal Riyadh Comedy Festival foretold about the kingdom's future, by Helen Lewis. So that's what's coming up. I want to like look at some other stuff first to kind of reaffirm the main lesson of the day, I think, which is the shit I'm always saying. Culture is not a monolith, but rather comprises the infinitesimal actions of individuals, pointing in all sorts of different directions, but fitting into a shift, a trend, a contour, a pattern. So, and in the case of what we were looking at with Ezra Klein last week, or last stream, people have left a lot of great comments there, getting at the idea. Yeah, like he can't confront what his role is, but we should also understand like these social organisms are not finely oiled machines, right? Like, there are sometimes like interventions that people make, say, to save capitalism from some kind of crisis, that like are very cunning and help to give the impression of like the social organism of capitalist imperialism as being this like super intelligent entity. But ultimately, like, it's actually very nebulous, and people stumble along blindly, governed by forces they don't understand. And Time Blind just donated £5. Thank you so much for the £5. Time Blind. I'm really having trouble with words today. It's a bit unfortunate. Thank you so much, Time Blind. Yeah, okay. Number one lesson today is this concept. We're going to run through it a bunch of times in different words, but it's like the Daily Mail tells you that the racists are really angry. It tells you there was a big march of racists. It tells you that many Britons are unhappy with the immigration situation, and you read it, and you're not a racist. You don't hate immigrants. Your immediate circle don't hate immigrants, but you have some awareness of the concept of confirmation bias, and you're like, oh no, maybe I'm in a little bit of a liberal progressive bubble or something. And this is telling me most people hate immigrants. But then you look at the actual sizes of like protests and crowds and marches, and you realize there is, a media bias to represent some people's opinions on British politics as very, very urgent and must be dealt with right now, and some people's opinions on British politics as annoying background noise, right? Respectively, here I'm talking about the attempted pogroms at migrant hotels and the massive, almost weekly for the last 2 years protests against the genocide in Gaza, right? Like these are... It's very unbalanced. And there's a reason for that, because telling you all your neighbors are racists keeps you from acting out against racism when you see it. When you see the system of racism, clearly in front of you and see ways to combat it, you want to less because you think you will receive social pushback from the people around you. This creates complacency among enemies of that system, and makes it easier for it to carry on perpetuating. But we will look at this concept a few different ways to try and get this across. Fuzzy Numbers says manufacturing consent. It is manufacturing consent. It's a part of manufacturing consent for sure. I just really want to specifically talk about how the commentariat, the intelligentsia, claim to understand something ineffable about the population, some kind of human essence that they tap into, and they read the minds of the political room, because they have to believe that they have some kind of special power to do that sort of thing. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in that position, right? Like, because obviously it's a meritocracy. Obviously, people are hired to fulfill a role. It can't just be that, like, the guy who knew the right people and wrote with a particular style was just plunked into a role, like plunked into a job and told just spit out opinions, and has a vague sense of which opinions would get him in trouble, but doesn't think too hard about how his opinion pieces are politically dictated, because it would drive him crazy otherwise. 10 Tiny Kittens, hey, welcome to the stream, it's so good to have you here. 10 Tiny Kittens says, Daddy's vast wealth had nothing to do with it, of course. Of course. We are going to... So, in the build-up to the Riyadh Comedy Festival, which is just such a bizarre time, let's start with the Gaza left and the gender left by Helen Lewis. I'm immediately fascinated with this one, right? So, I've got a couple of things here I'm not really going to go super into, just because I want to be clear. Like, Helen Lewis is a transphobe, right? So here she is defending Graham Linehan. Here she is writing a very, like, targeted, the TERFs are right and the trans movement is full of misinformation piece. If I felt like doing a debunking style thing, would go through all of this and explain all the bullshit going on. It is incredibly frustrating, and like debunking, fact checking stuff is not my is not really the thing I'm aiming to do here with the liberal slop. Hatfiend says, hi, I considered paying for the stream and has subscribed at tier 1. Thank you so much, Hatfiend. Wintry Meat says, groups with different values, citation needed. Yes, this is going to be Yeah, it's a frustrating article. Hey, middle-left Marxist. So, this is her defending Graham Linehan. Let's look a little bit at this one first, just to like reaffirm like what her politics on trans people very obviously is. The arrest that demonstrates Europe's free speech problem, the absurd detention of the comedy writer Graham Linehan, underscores a deeper issue by Helen Lewis. The Irish comedy writer Graham Linehan was once known for his charming... I don't need to jerk him off, sorry, just never mind. So he went crazy. He went crazy and started harassing loads of trans people. We know this, we know about Glenna, we don't need to recap. He is obsessive and offensive, but is he a criminal? The British police seem to think so. Linehan was arrested by 5 armed officers today on his return from the United States, where he's been working on a new sitcom and was accused of inciting violence. He says this allegation relates to 3 posts on X. Authorities have not contradicted him, and British news outlets are treating his account as credible. In one of the offending posts, he wrote, "If a trans-identified male is in a female-only space, he is committing a violent, abusive act. Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, punch him in the balls." This is an incitement to violence against a marginalized group. Honestly, everything going on here, incredibly cut and dry, in terms of shit that you just shouldn't actually be like saying in public. Like, we all are like making an effort to, because we are worried we will get in trouble, to not say like emotive things that we wouldn't necessarily stand by as like a serious political tactic. Like, I think Donald Trump should be fucking shot. Like, I'm not saying this on my platform as my serious recommendation to loads of people to try and go in, right? Because I'm not inciting violence. And I could get into why I don't think that like solo actors, political assassins are that helpful to the revolution, or I could get into why I would just get in lots of trouble for saying this, and both are equally valid reasons why I'm not saying this. But I think Donald Trump should get fucking shot is a thing that most people, like most people in the Anglosphere have thought sometime in the last like decade or so, right? Like the last few election cycles of American politics. And people don't say that. And, that might be because they are afraid of getting in trouble. It might be because they don't think it's, like, actually that helpful an idea to say. It might be a deep-seated, like, respect for human dignity, and they don't think anyone should get murdered. We should find peaceful solutions to blah, 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 blah. Although I guess that's, like, the tactical thing I was just saying. Graham Linehan is saying seriously and says this kind of shit all the time, that people should attack trans women in women's spaces, right? And attack them in a specifically transphobic, specifically sexually targeted way. He's a disgusting man. This is a disgusting thing to say. He says this kind of thing all the time. And if people were going to pick on a single one of his posts to involve the police, not that I support going to the police in, as the general first response to things, as a police and prison abolitionist. Like, I don't want Graham Linehan to go to prison. Like, I don't think it'll make him better. But if someone were going to pick one thing to just say, like, fuck this guy, I'm calling the cops, it's a pretty reasonable post. And and all, like, any navel-gazing around, like, is this too far? Like, are we going too far, actually? Are we actually, like, I think maybe the left is going too far, policing everyone's speech. Writing a fucking article in The Atlantic saying Europe has a free speech problem because Graham Linehan, like, made threats against a minority group in a creepy way, like a creepy genital-obsessed way, like most things he says, and also sent a bunch of threats specifically to a teenager. Like, this one's actually pretty cut and dry. Assuming Linehan's account is correct, then his arrest is totalitarian, absurd, and a waste of police time. If anyone here is wondering, by the way, if Helen Lewis has pieces about how the prescription of Palestine action is totalitarian, absurd, what was it? Totalitarian, absurd, and a waste of police time. No. So, American readers will be used to conservatives claiming censorship at the slightest provocation, even as they enjoy the First Amendment's protection from government action. But the problem in Europe is real. In Munich this spring, Vice President J.D. Vance cited a police action against a silent anti-abortion protester in Britain, as well as a man who burned a Quran in Sweden, to make a case that across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat. Vance's position in the Trump administration gave skeptical audiences in Europe an excuse to ignore him, given its illiberal treatment of anti-Israel protesters. Hello. Nearly there. And the White House has all the moral authority of a fox standing next to a heap of chicken bones. Many Europeans were familiar with Elon Musk's takeover of X, and so had seen firsthand what his version of free speech absolutist world looks like in practice: a grim parade of snuff footage, violent anti-Semitism, and monetized misinformation. Nonetheless, Vance was correct. So, this is the person we're dealing with, is like defending the completely like ridiculous positions of a very obvious, very powerful fascist in order to defend a completely unhinged, hateful bigot who's currently being investigated for hate speech. And I'm sure Helen Lewis would consider everything I'm saying here to be just like dodging the core issue, but like, no, again, like there are things that people get mad in politics and say ugly things all the time, but people also like avoid using their public platform to say those things, and especially say them directed against a teenager, and incite people to attack a minority group. Like that's maybe we can like draw a line in political discourse and public figures using their platforms in a really obvious place there. Also, like the burning the Quran thing, like I think she says this later on in the same thing to do with burning a Quran. Even though England repealed its blasphemy laws in 2008, the issue of burning a Quran is not an issue of blasphemy. It's an issue of like obvious like hateful expression towards a minoritized and stigmatized group, right? Like Muslim migrants in the UK deal with so much fucking Islamophobia, and funnily enough, Islamophobia will come up as we read more. But like it's not an issue of blasphemy. Like it is neither an issue of blasphemy for someone burning a Bible or a Quran. But in a historically and culturally Christian country, burning a Bible is like an edgy artist thing. Like it's like an edgy form of artistic comment or protest or something. And burning a Quran is very obviously attacking a symbol of a marginalized group and being intolerant of them being present in the culture. Like having even just the slightest drop of power analysis here, just the slightest drop, right? Like rather than like this bizarre idea of like an even playing field between the pre-existing and power-holding culture of a society and a place and a nation versus a marginalized migrant group. Like the law should treat people equally, but people aren't equal to begin with, right? We just implicitly understand that burning a Quran in England is doing a different thing than if someone burned a Bible. And even if the feelings between Christian Britons and Muslim Britons were the same, witnessing their respective holy book being burned, like identical, like the material reality of those groups every day is not the same. We need the law to successfully articulate that, like that thing we all have a felt sense of what's different about that situation. I think we all know it. It's just fucking common sense, actually. Like here, it's not. I don't really need to get into a huge like analysis of systems or anything here. It's just like, yeah, if there's a migrant group there in your country and you burn symbols of their faith, the comment being made is completely something else. Like, okay, All that to say, in that Graham Linehan article, she defended people's right to burn Korans. She's defending Graham Linehan's right to be a hideously hateful bigot. I already closed the tab, but I actually didn't want to reload it now because just in the end, she linked a piece by Glenna. She was saying, I don't want to downplay the fact that Linehan has a history of involvement with pretty grubby and wearisome internet arguments. I say this as a frequent target of his rage, right? Because she's been told off by him. She's had, he's written about her because he's angry that she isn't being enough of a, genocidal tough. Here's his piece from 2021. Helen Lewis is a dishonest, unethical careerist hack. And I think what she thinks she's doing there is saying, look, I'm sticking up for him because I may not like the thing he says, but I defend his right to say it. And it's you've already said there's a problem with, trans activists having a sign that said decapitate TERFs. You've already said there's a problem with Sarah Jane Baker saying if you see a TERF, punch them in the fucking face. Which, by the way, she went to jail for. She was in jail for a long time because that happened because it was reported by TERFs. And jail as a trans woman and jail as a cis man, or jail as anyone but a trans woman, are fundamentally different enterprises. It's an area where the law is not equal. She's already said that stuff, and then she's saying, and I want to defend, his right to say this ugly stuff, the bigot's right to say this ugly stuff, even though he's been mean to me. I just babe, this just makes you look cucked. This is just really embarrassing to be he doesn't even like me and is really horrible to me, but this is really important. It's really, really important to defend people's right to be transphobic. But free speech martyrs are often like this, hard to sympathize with or hard to defend. Open debate is often obnoxious, upsetting, or rude, but none of these adjectives should make it a police matter. It's such a frustrating thing because it's just I don't think it should be a police matter either, but I think that the society should be just very, very, very different. And I don't... There are things online, people get so black and white in their kind of moral application of their political values, and it's not how people really function, right? Police abolitionists do not want to slap the phone out of the hand of a domestic abuse survivor who is calling the cops, right? They want to create systems that will make the cops obsolete so the police can be abolished, prisons can be abolished, and we can have transformative solutions to violence in our society that tackle the systems at the root of the problems we see, right? And the case of, I don't think that I don't think Graham Linehan should go to jail for tweets. I don't think people in general should go to jail for tweets. But someone having called the cops on him for making an explicit violent threat, an incitement to violence for other people against a minority group, I'm not losing sleep over it. Choosing to defend him here is a very political statement, and not a political statement towards the unalloyed virtue of free speech, but towards transphobia, and that's completely naked, right? Okay, let's get into... Oh, I still have Helen Lewis as a dishonest, unethical careerist hack open. Let's get into the Chazza left and the gender left. Can groups with different values work together against Britain's far right? By Helen Lewis. Okay. So, all of that was just pretext to say she does not consider herself the gender left. Maybe she thinks she cares an enormous amount about the genocide. I haven't seen her using her platform to do particularly much at all about the genocide. So this is where we get to what I was saying earlier. These people see themselves as being intangible spectators of the world and of politics and of the population and of society and culture, and not governed by ideological forces, and therefore blind to the effects of the things they're having. And this abstract space where we're going to have an abstract debate is just always the first step in them pulling some frankly some honky shit, just disgusting just like classically Euro fascist evil shit. Let's get into the article. Wait a second, let me first say, if you're enjoying the stream, please consider paying for the stream. You can subscribe or cheer or donate directly using Command Tip. Command Tip looks like this. I'm going to type it in the chat now. It's exclamation point and then TIP and send, and then does that, and there's a link. And you can donate. I am poorer than I used to be, and it would be nice to earn money through my stream so I can buy nice things. I'm just going to be straightforward here. It's nice to buy nice things. I would also like to not be at all worried about like food and bills, but yeah, treat me please. Treat me needing treat a lot now, please. Otherwise, I'll start campaigning really hard against eco-socialism because I won't have my treats anymore. Let's get into the article. At first, the recent collapse of Your Party, a new British grouping of socialists, progressive, and opponents of the war in Gaza, brings to mind a classic Onion headline: left-wing group too disorganized for FBI agents to infiltrate. I'm just going to point out here, before we... Wintermute says, Megamind no treats. I have treats, currently. If the treats run out, I will get in the Hitler car. It will happen. Sorry, I have a strong urge to show my texts with Mule from earlier this week on stream right now, but I haven't asked him about it, so I'm not going to do it. We were just texting about the Hitler car. Where were we? Opponents of the war in Gaza, brings to mind a classic Onion headline, left-wing group. Yes, before we carry on with this, before we get like super into the article and like discuss what the function of this is and what she is doing unknowingly here, I think it's worth pointing out that the recent collapse of Your Party is like, it's not completely over. Like, it's not a like done deal. It does feel pretty fucked, but there is specifically one move that I think would redeem it in tons and tons of people's eyes. It's been discussed by Sisters Uncut activist and a bit of a thought leader in the abolitionist feminist space in Britain, Shanice Octavia McBean. She and was it Jonas? It might have been Jonas. It might have been the other one. Sorry. She and someone else authored a piece basically saying it needs to be our party. Put your money where your mouth is. Let the activists run the party. Like, let people who are politically engaged and make up the movement, like, start to form the democratic structure. Open it up to memberships. Let the membership actually decide what the policies should be. That's the whole premise of what Your Party is supposedly going to be doing. And that would make a huge difference. It would be cool to see Helen Lewis acknowledge this at all, unless she's just entirely out of touch with the the movement of the left and actually doesn't actually have an insider perspective of this stuff at all. I don't know if she claims to be leftist, but whatever. As I say, we know she's not this one. So anyway. Okay. Your Party's descent into infighting and recrimination offers an insight into the challenges faced by the left on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. There are some problems with the left in the Anglosphere. There are some problems with the left on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. Let's see if she completely nails them. I'm sure she will. Although the fledgling organisation was designed to challenge the ruling Labour Party from the left, its troubles began even before it had a name. The sign-up page referred to Your Party, but journalists who referred to it as such were told that this is merely an interim description. In the best tradition of left-wing grassroots democracy, its members should decide the final name. Sadly, no one knows what this is yet. Before its official launch, the two co-founders of Your Party fell out, with one accused of hijacking the mailing list and the other of running a sexist boys' club. Yes, Zara Sultana did say it was a sexist boys' club, and she also called out specifically the transphobia. Interesting how someone who cares about sexism and transphobia and is there speaking out against both of those. It's interesting. But anyway, that's not the point, of course, because Zara Sultana is the gender left, right? That's the whole point here is that she's obviously just the gender left, and she was making an alliance with the Chaza left, Jeremy Corbyn. That doesn't feel right. But the whole premise of this is that there are these two groups with different values. Anyway, the future of the organisation, which has claimed more than 800,000 sign-ups, is now in doubt. Many of the party's struggles are uniquely British. Yes, like the transphobia. But the larger tension that has paralysed your party will be familiar to watchers of American politics. In both countries, the political left has been caught flat-footed by the rise of an insurgent populist right that the centre-left establishment has proved inept at resisting. Helen, unless you just admit that you are part of the right wing in a world that is falling into fascism so fast, you must consider yourself to be this. Like, you are the centre-left establishment. You are an editor of the New Statesman, and like anyone who's been to Specsavers can make out from 50 yards that like Starmer's government is actually firmly to the right, like not even necessarily centre-right, but like, you know, the New Statesman is the kind of like wonk paper that works very closely with people like Starmer, and these are the people who would consider themselves, in the way that Helen Lewis probably does, the centre-left establishment. Like, at what point is there just some reflective shame, like saying like this has been inept, so we need to do something better? I mean, I guess this is it. I guess that's exactly what we're reading now, is like this is her offering her take about the situation of the left. But it's like, rather than seeking solidarities, you know, solidarity, that thing leftists believe in, that's the kind of the basis of like all our politics from the beginning. Rather than seeking solidarities, she's saying, oh, I don't know about this. Don't know if the gender left will be able to get along with the Chaza left. It might not happen because they got different values. And it's just like, I'm sorry, but like, Zara Sultana is a perfect example of where the two are merged, and to try and put her on either side would be ridiculous. And there are just so many people whose basic core set of values, like a socialist progressive, easily explains to them why they should support trans people and oppose genocide. Insane. As the rest of the left plots its resurgence, how big should the tent be? You shouldn't be in it, Helen. Fucking you and your mate Glenna. What matters most? Foreign policy, social issues, or economic populism? This is so funny. This is so funny, economic populism. It's just exactly the thing I was already saying, right? Like about it's the people with the platforms who want their treats. And they can grab easy votes by saying, this is an important one. Let me change over. This is an important concept, right? Polling captures people's responses, usually within a set number of responses, because that's how you make it into data. Quantitative polling captures people's responses in the setting where they're being asked by a polling person a specific question. You don't get the data that you don't ask questions for, and a lot of the more technocratically minded politicians who think that like neoliberalism is just this thing we need to like steer in the right direction until it's green capitalism and then things will be okay, rather than understanding the way that like imperialism is tearing the planet apart, not just in terms of the ecosystem, not just in terms of the ecology, but like the rise of fascism is so directly related to this. These people think that relying on the data, like what people want, out of the options that were offered to them, that tells us which direction to go. And I was talking a little bit about this before on the last stream when we were talking about Ezra Klein. Ezra Klein sees a rise in the far right. He believes the overturn window, a metaphor about a fixed frame that moves back and forth, has shifted to the right. And so to chase the votes, Democrats need to shift to the right, get the votes, and then shift the overturn window back. Which is one set of imaginative metaphors and linguistic configurations that you can apply to politics, or you could use dialectical materialism and talk about things that are actually real and not made up. So, if instead he understood a time when people are socially precarious and only becoming more so because of the polycrisis, people will seek different answers, right? They will try to seek different things than what is currently offered. And if they're offered what's currently offered or the far right, not everyone, but quite a lot of people will go to the far right. And if they're offered what they're already offered or the far left, quite a lot of people, incidentally more people, but quite a lot of people, but not all people, will go to the far left. The far left here being a society based on sharing and not letting homeless people die in the winter, and not just like throwing your nan in a bin and setting it on fire the moment that she isn't a valuable portfolio asset to you. And given a set of options between what's currently offered, the far left and the far right, people will choose the far left in a lot of cases, and not all cases, and that's the struggle, and that's how you build revolution. It's people are going in polarizing directions, and the left isn't being offered by the establishment anywhere, right? This thing about the centre-left establishment proving inept at resisting, it didn't go left. It didn't offer anyone anything left. And when we've seen people offer like actually left-wing platforms, shockingly they keep on winning. Ellie Boo says, Streamlabs/PayPal don't want me to treat you. You could subscribe to my Patreon if you would be happy being a monthly treater. If not, I don't really know what to suggest. You could try it again later. I've had this before, and I really don't know what the issue is that causes some payments to be declined. But if you're enjoying the stream, please consider paying for the stream. At least try to subscribe or cheer or donate directly using command tip. Where was I? People need a change. A system that's actually based on reality, like socialism, can offer an actually implementable, sustainable future. A system that's based on bullshit and emotional appeal, like fascism, can win a bunch of votes, yes. Fascism's been the one on the ballot of the like different options, of the change options. It's fascism has been the one like people have been being offered electorally, and people have had to like actively seek out like leftist organizing to be involved in, because there are no successful like vanguardist socialist parties in the imperial core. And even though it's such a higher effort, people have been going and seeking out and joining and massively inflating the numbers of leftist organizations, right? Tenants unions, for example, have become exponentially larger over the last decade or so. There's a resurgence of the actually socialist organized labor movement, you know. Anyway, let's get back into the article. My point is, they all have their brains jammed into the Overton window and their asses out. In the United States, these tensions often play out within the Democratic Party, where opinions of its most vocal supporters, predominantly white professional liberals, would love some reflection on this. Would also love some reflection on them being usually cishet too. Frequently diverge from those of organized labor and socially conservative minority voters. We carry on. We're reading. In Britain, though, the parliamentary system means that smaller parties, even single-issue parties, can actually win seats and seek leverage by acting as a spoiler. With the centre-left Labour government, see, this is what I mean. She thinks the Labour government is centre-left. With the centre-left Labour government deeply unpopular and Nigel Farage's populist right party, Reform, leading in the polls, the political left has sensed an opportunity. If, that is, its members can avoid falling out with each other, with one another long enough to seize it. This is a painful one to read because it's like, worst liberal slop writer made a great point. Like, it's just like she is ultimately discussing a place where Sultana and Corbyn did fuck it up, and it's like quite embarrassing and frustrating. It's just that her whole framework of analysis is ridiculous fucking bullshit. Okay. Your party exists because of the Israel-Palestine conflict. The Israel-Palestine conflict. The Israel-Palestine conflict. Currently, the pro-Palestine cause is one of the biggest protest movements in Britain, not least because of popular opinion here. As in the United States, not least because popular opinion here, as in the United States, is well to the left of the main centre-left party. Crazy. You're just saying it. Since October 7th, opposition to the war in Gaza has brought young social justice-minded progressives together with British Muslims who are more socially conservative than the general population. This is so frustrating. Like, Muslims are... all religious groups are more socially conservative than the general population. I'm not going to go super into it. Oh my god, Elibu has tipped £100. Thank you so much, Elibu. I really massively appreciate that. You've said for treats, and I will spend that absolutely all on treats. Thank you, I really appreciate that. I haven't mentioned this so far, but I want to just point out the dono goal I have is £800. If I can get that by the end of the month, that will be useful data on kind of how my chat likes to donate. But I've set a reward for $350, which would be cool to at least get. I will tell a 10-minute long joke. Wintry already knows the joke and can vouch that it's 10 minutes long. Okay. General population, blah, blah, blah. Muslims make up about 6% of the British population. Both groups are opposed to what they see as Israel's genocide against Palestinians. Both groups are opposed to what they see as Israel's genocide against Palestinians. What they see as Israel's genocide against Palestinians. But beyond that political issue, beyond that particular issue, the alliance of Rainbow and Crescent, as historian James Orr, a friend of J.D. Vance, has described it, is extremely fragile. She actually just really loves reading the thoughts of fascists and taking them super seriously and then incorporating them intellectually into her work. Helen, wake up! Helen, you've been in a coma for 16 years. Helen! Helen! It's so embarrassing. She thinks that Labour is centre left, and she's whatever. Okay, gay marriage, abortion, and transgender rights. Gay marriage, abortion, and transgender rights are obvious flashpoints, but other issues can be equally divisive. This next bit, I remember from reading this before, is just so bizarre to me. Like, she's just made this up. Like, she's just no one cares. Literally no one cares about this. Gay marriage, abortion, and transgender rights are obviously flashpoints, but other issues can be equally divisive. For instance, many British Muslims support fee-paying schools, which can offer students a more religious curriculum than government-run institutions. The traditional left-wing position, however, is that private schools are engines of privilege and should be abolished. Can these groups happily coexist in a left-wing movement in the long term? The experience of your party suggests not. A fee-paying religious Muslim school is not the same thing as the Bullingdon Club. It's not the same thing as Eton. The left's position is again... Whoo! All the honky alarms are going off. Literally every possible fucking warning for you are reading a fucking article by a goddamn honky. No one cares about this. Like, no one is trying to stop, like, no one on the left is trying to stop Muslim schools. Like, actually, fuck off. Also, like, sorry, I'm just going to put it back again. While I'm on this, I don't want any Americans who are watching to get the mistaken impression that she has even a shred of a point here. Like, even the tiniest bit. Like, I know a ton of people involved in the campaign against the genocide in Gaza. Unsurprisingly, a bunch of them are Muslims. I obviously have a self-selecting filter in terms of, like, people who think that trans people shouldn't have rights. Like, I'm not going to be friends with those people. But it's just not different groups of people. Like, the gender left and the Gaza left. Like, they're not different at all. The number of trans protesters at Palestine protests, they could be better, but, like, I'm only half honky, but still so sorry this cracker's behavior. I'm all the way the palest fucking woman. I'm made of alabaster and mayonnaise, and I am embarrassed how white this shit is. My point was, I was getting at was, I should read out commenters' names when it's a comment that I'm reading out, because I don't have the chat on screen. That was Audrey Stardust just then. These are not different groups except demographically, and that maybe they, like, have found more, like, organizational structure, common ground, and community together since October 7th, 2023. Right? Like, these are not different groups in terms of her whole thing about, like, these groups have different values. Like, nope. Just, like, no, you're witnessing this, like, intense solidarity that's actually, like, just nah. It's just a massive fucking nah. Your personal experience clearly pales in comparison to Helen's divine insight. I pale in comparison to most people. But, like, seriously, I don't want to, like, talk with too much of a fucking big head, but there are some institutions, there are some, like, organizations that are particularly prominent in the coalitions that are built to facilitate action, both symbolic and direct, against the genocide. And I know a lot of the people, or know people who know a lot of the people in these groups, and they're just all pro-trans. There just aren't TERFs who are, like, meaningfully contributing to the effort against the genocide. But if you live in, like, a complete, like, abstract fucking phantom zone, like a liberal slop writer, and you think that, like, holding a belief in your heart is the same as making a real difference materially in the world towards a political cause, then I'm sure you think it's entirely possible to be, like, gender critical and also somehow actually opposing the genocide. But she's also calling it, like, the Israel-Palestine conflict. At this point, I'm starting to, like, wonder if I've run in too soon with the assumption she would describe herself as centre-left, considering she's kind of hedging her bets around the genocide as well as being a TERF. Oh, crikey. I've sat on my leg for too long. Oh, okay. I keep on needing to... Oh, yep, that's an example there. I keep on needing to monitor this top because I'm... it's a bit of a dangerous one for stream. Maybe she doesn't want to suggest any roots of solidarity at all because she considers herself centre-left, but doesn't want the gender left or the Gaza left to succeed in the slightest. Do you need another mod? I already have 2 mods here, and it's not that big a stream. Thank you for the offer, though. BCS Nicholas, hey, welcome to the stream. Good evening, chat. Sad I got here so late, but I am happy I got here at all. So just to catch you up and anyone else who's joined the stream somewhat recently, we are reading a few different, 3 mods even. TTK, I meant you and Wintry. Are you... Oh, Locan's also a mod. Yeah, I have 3 mods even. Locan also says, to bring it back to Graham Linehan for a sec, remember when he claimed repeal was won by gender-critical feminists? Yeah, no, exactly the same kind of shit, just like hallucinating TERFs having any kind of like left-wing scruples whatsoever. When here in reality, TERFs were literally yelling at us on social media, claiming that if we didn't sell out trans people, they'd vote no because women would rather take the boat than share spaces with men. Oof. Oof. Vulpix989, hey, welcome to the stream, says, it's so polling-brained. Like, you ask people, what is the number one issue facing people in your state? And they go, look, we got 40% people responding trans genocide and 40% responding Palestinian genocide. It looks like there are two different groups. Yeah, I think it also, like, very much, I'll finish responding to this comment. Vulpix. I think it also very much is to do with like a view of society from the top down, a view of society that is about statesmanship, right? She's literally on the editorial staff of the New Statesman. Like, people who view themselves as temporarily embarrassed presidents, right? Like they are going to be in charge someday and need to understand the logic of the different kingdoms that make up the society that you rule over, and that group is the Muslims, and they are socially conservative, and that group is the transgenders, and they are evil and must be destroyed. I mean, wacky left, far left, big far left, how are they getting along? And it's just like, once again, if you have a coherent worldview based on material reality, you can understand the forces of imperialism that are both targeting trans people and Palestinians, trans people domestically, Palestinians abroad, and how they are very clearly related, and you can work together to fight those systems. You might not even need a like hyper well-read, you don't need to become Kwame Ture, right? Like, you don't even need to have a hyper well-read position, all of it super articulate and coherent and able to get everything across. It just keeps happening. You need to, you just need to experience the world as a minoritized person in a lot of cases. Like, just in a lot of cases, that's enough for people to be like, I am this kind of person and I'm stigmatized by British society. I see trans people, I see Muslims, whatever, being stigmatized, and and I want to stick up for them. BCS Nicholas just gifted a tier 1 sub to Satanic Oaldo. Congratulations to Satanic Oaldo, you now have a tier 1 subscription. You can use cool Sophie from Mars emotes in Twitch chats all over Twitch. I was going to catch people up for what we're doing on the stream, for people who've joined more recently. We are doing a liberal slop stream. We're looking at Helen Lewis. There are so many TERF Helens that I struggle to remember them a lot of the time, but Helen Lewis is one of the ones who's trying the hardest to look moderate, right? Like, Helen Joyce had something that like published a book that was called like The Gender Question or something, that's just like, she fully got in the Hitler car. Helen Starnyland does like a podcast with Graham Linehan. There's another Helen, I know there's another one, what's she called? Anyway, and then there's Helen Lewis, and I can remember Helen Lewis because she's the one who's pretending to be relatively moderate, although, you know, everyone would like people to believe that they're moderates. This, however, is not... Lokan, sorry, this is such a juvenile giggle, but Lokan's very good at making me have that kind of giggle. Lokan said, please, her name is Helen... I'm going to say Pen Island. And for people who are just joining, this is what we're building up to. We're going to be reading I Watched Stand Up in Saudi Arabia. I just wanted to take a broad look at some Helen Lewis pieces. So we're now reading the Chaza left and the gender left. Hi once again to the VOD viewers who are seeing this later on. Looking forward to seeing your thoughts, and probably look at some of them on the next stream when we do that. Remember that you also can pay for the stream if you're enjoying the stream. Probably the best way to do that is my patreon.com/SophieFromMars. Yeah, alright, where are we up to? Let's go for... Your party suggests not. One of its two leaders is the 76-year-old Jeremy Corbyn, a lifelong anti-war, anti-colonialist leftist who was unexpectedly elevated to lead Labour in 2015. Corbyn performed above expectations in the 2017 general election, but flamed out spectacularly in 2019 when his Conservative opponent Boris Johnson managed to turn the vote into a referendum on getting Brexit done. He did do that very successfully. It was absolutely sickening. Also, Helen Lewis at the time wrote something that was called, like, neither Boris Johnson nor Jeremy Corbyn deserve to win. It's just like, how do you feel the country would be doing now, Helen, if Jeremy Corbyn had won? And maybe that could have been changed in that election if people with prominent platforms and in positions in the centre-left establishment. Anyway, you get the idea. You see what I'm saying. But especially in the 2017 election, because they literally lost that by like a couple thousand votes. His successor as Labour leader, Keir Starmer, initially presented himself as part of the Corbynite tradition. Not massively. He kept some promises that he kept in some platform promises that he's since betrayed. But he pivoted soon after winning the leadership into attacking the party's hard left and taking the party to the centre. In 2020, Labour suspended Corbyn for refusing to acknowledge the extent of anti-Semitism within the party under his watch. Is that the reason, or is that the stated reason? Just, do we have any journalistic curiosity about this at all? Any like intellectual willingness to interrogate this? Anyway, he was later expelled altogether. Since then, Corbyn has sat in Parliament as an independent, and last year he began working closely with the Khaza Independents, a group of 4 men elected in 2024 in constituencies with significant Muslim populations. Shaukat Adam, Adnan Hussein, Ayub Khan, Iqbal Mohammed. The other prospective co-leader of your party is a 31-year-old Zara Sultana, who is also a former Labour member of Parliament. Who is also a former Labour member of Parliament. Her politics are anti-austerity, pro-Palestinian, and here comes the tricky part: socially progressive. Boo? What are you talking about? How is like what's the tricky part there? She is anti-austerity and she's anti-genocide. Like, by the way, I wouldn't describe her as anti-austerity, I would describe her as a socialist. Like, I would describe her approach to like fiscal policy on behalf of the government as she would like there to be socialism, not like she would like there not to be lots of cuts to social welfare programs. Like, it's a uniting worldview that, like, and we encounter this all the time in liberal slop, but just like they can't admit like that's what's going on, that's the viewpoint. It's the ideology that must not be named. The rollback of LGBT rights, especially trans rights, is global, bankrolled by billionaires and the far right, she wrote on X in April. When the boxer Iman Khalif competed in the female category at the Olympics last year amid questions about her eligibility, Sultana posted a picture of Khalif on Facebook with the caption, "If you come for the Queen, you best not miss." Boxing authorities have instituted new requirements for sex testing, which Khalif has challenged. She has not competed professionally since they took effect. With 490,000 followers... she shared that with 490,000 followers. Can I just point out quickly how much she is leaving out here? Like, enormously how much she's leaving out, because Iman Khalif was given a blood test to check her testosterone levels after she beat an up till then undefeated Russian boxer, because the Russian Boxing Federation wanted to prove that she was secretly a man to invalidate the result so their girl would still be undefeated. And that was the basis. They gave her a blood test and then said, without having checked her chromosomes, that they had found that she had unusual chromosomes and was intersex. And that was the basis for her exclusion in the first place. And whether any of this turns out to be true or not, that was all some rat fuckery by people who wanted to protect the record of their favourite boxer. And her refusing to go along with these rules is completely valid if she is intersex or high testosterone or whatever, or not, given that all of this is driven by egregious fucking racism and corruption. Anyway. Sultana is said to be the second most followed British politician on TikTok after Nigel Farage. Grim. What a chat saying. Middle-earth Marxist says that because the social conservatives are well known for their anti-austerity beliefs. Right! Sorry! Like, she just has to talk against people's lived experience of the world constantly. And I know, like, I really try to challenge my own confirmation bias and think hard about what ideological forces are driving me when I'm talking about all this stuff. But I just actually know from like moving through the world as one of the kinds of people that the British media tries to stigmatize constantly, that like if people agreed with what the headlines say about trans people, I would be completely unable to live my life. Right? And so I just know that most people don't agree with that stuff, and most people I talk to and people I hear of and people like even before you get to the polling, it's just God, it's infuriating. Sultana speaks for a large section of the youthful British left, for whom gay marriage is a settled issue and gender self-identification is a human right. Corbyn, on the other hand, has always cared principally about foreign policy. He vocally opposed apartheid in South Africa and George W. Bush's war in Iraq. Crazy man. As Labour leader, he gamely announced his pronouns, he, him, and supported gender self-ID rules, but he never gave any sense of being deeply motivated by the issue. Yeah, he gets what the right side of the issue is, he doesn't understand its importance. He needs some feminism. It's a bit disappointing. It's the kind of thing that would lead to a party he founds being a sexist boys' club. I'm not totally understanding the discourse happening in the chat, but that's okay. You all can just have fun. I don't have to understand. Sultana was the one to announce the formation of the new party on July 3rd with a post on X that implored disaffected Labour supporters to join us. Behind the scenes, Corbyn was reportedly furious. He did not want to be a co-leader with someone else and felt that he had been forced into a decision. The Times of London printed WhatsApp messages showing his longtime fixer, Carrie Murphy, removing dissenters from the group chat organising the new party's launch. Corbyn eventually welcomed the creation of a new party in public, albeit grudgingly. A month later, the split between the social progressives and those focused on foreign policy, the gender leftists and the Gaza leftists, became impossible to deny. I just... Zara Sultana is from a Muslim family. It's not like a trans MP who has been like fighting for an end to the genocide in Gaza took issue with the transphobia. Like, I'm gonna keep on reading because I want to like. I'm trying to stick to the props to you for using DuckDuckGo. My wife is very like against big tech surveillance and the general enshittification of Google and just Google in general. She actually just hates Google, so she set it as my default. But I'm just gonna try and keep reading because I'm trying to do like minimal interruptions when I read this stuff because I want for people to like contemplate on their own time as we read through, and then we have some discussion afterwards, you know. But it's just, goodness gracious, this is frustrating. A month later, the split between the social progressives and those focused on foreign policy, the gender leftists and the Gaza leftists, became impossible to deny. In August, Hussein, one of the independent members of parliament, posted an announcement for a Your Party event with Corbyn on X. A commenter who endorsed a material analysis of sex urged the new left-wing party to not parrot the same neoliberal idea of gender ideology. Marxist feminists are trans-inclusive except for the small minority who are just not generally that feminist at all, and oh look, what would you expect? It's fucking tough again. Like, it's a material analysis of sex is a very, very shoddy attempt at trying to make transphobia sound like it aligns with leftist principles, but the patriarchy, the system that empowers men, is, I don't know if people are aware of this, but it's actually like the primary target of feminism is trying to dismantle the patriarchy. And the patriarchy, get this, minoritizes people whose gender experiences fall outside of a cisgender binary, and stigmatizes them, and acknowledging that people can change sex, like really meaningfully can change sex, legitimizes that women are people in a very like concrete way that like the vast majority of all feminists can see, and that's why the vast majority of all feminists outside of a quite elite bubble and the people they've poisoned with brainworms on Twitter, the vast majority of feminists are trans inclusive for these reasons. A material analysis of sex and that transness is a neoliberal idea of gender ideology. This is sicko shit. Like, this is just like imp mode. Like, this is like her brain has turned upside down inside of the cerebral fluid and is just humming. Like, she would not give the slightest fuck what someone who's asking for a material analysis of anything has to say until it's pushing turf talking points. Right? Like, okay, sorry. I said I was gonna move along. I'm moving along. Hussein replied, "I agree women's rights and safe spaces should not be encroached upon. Safe third spaces should be an alternative option. After all," he went on to say, "trans women are not biologically women." And that's why he can go fuck himself. He's also a landlord. Like, how about a material analysis of rentierism, Hussein? Fuck off. This ignited, if not a firestorm, then certainly a small but lively conflagration. You win, Helen. You've defeated me. I still can't say it. It's this word, it's dead to me. Sultana gave an interview saying that it was really important that from the outset we are loud and proud about the values that we have, and there was no space for transphobia in your party. In public, the issue then simmered down for a month until last week when Corbyn posted a message on X warning supporters that an unauthorised email trying to convince them to pay £55 for an annual fee to join your party had been sent to the mailing list. This email had come from allies of Sultana. A further statement referred to Sultana's unilateral launch of the party. That is not how Sultana saw it. She said that she launched the membership portal after being sidelined by Corbyn's allies. She also attacked the Sexist Boys Club, whom she said had refused to allow any other women with voting rights on the working group. On September 19th, a third faction arose, demanding all 6 independents step back from the leadership roles because the people should take things forward from here. Again, the Onion headline comes to mind. Helen, what the fuck do you believe in? Like, very earnest question, like, what the fuck do you believe in? Do you stand for anything? Do you want the left to win? Do you want the world to be improved in any way? Because this all is just, like, smug, detached, post-ironic laughing at what a mess the left is. Like, the people should take things forward from here. This is her referencing Shanice Octavia McBean and I've forgotten the co-authors, our party proposition that it should be more democratic. Like, she's also misrepresented this. Like, this is all just a nightmare. Like, she said she'd been sidelined by Corbyn's allies. Earlier, we've got Carrie Murphy removing dissenters from a group chat. These are organising issues where people are behaving shittily and like wreckers. I don't think it's entirely unwreckerish for them to launch the membership portal without full confirmation, but it's also pretty wreckerish to not let more women on the working group and to remove a bunch of people from a group chat because they're not stroking your ego enough. Like, these are issues in organising, and it's really frustrating to everyone on the British left right now that they didn't successfully overcome these, given the stakes at play. But it's not actually like an ideological split that is primarily driving it. Like, she's saying it's a sexist boys club because, like, that's an organising issue. There's only one woman with voting rights in the working group, you know? the third faction arising is a sensible suggestion for how to solve this problem. Get the people with a brand name, brand fucking recognition like Corbyn, to endorse what the party is doing, but let the party be dictated by democracy. Like, let people decide what your party's policies are going to be, and the independents who've formed it in the first place say, yep, this is the party and we're sticking by it, and we're giving brand recognition to it, and just like those on the left who are dismayed by the turmoil inside your party have been consoling themselves with the fact that another left-wing party exists, the Greens. Maybe that's the vehicle that will take off as a result of this, one of Corbyn's former aides, Andrew Fisher, told the BBC. Unfortunately, the same struggle for precedence among foreign policy, economic populism and social justice is also present in the Greens. Ostensibly an environmentalist party, the Greens are also socially progressive and economically left-wing. Okay, so I see, seems the Greens would have no issue being against the genocide and supporting trans rights so far. I don't see any conflict whatsoever unless you're trying to manufacture one, and that's the whole point of your article. Ostensibly, when the Scottish branch was a minority coalition partner in the Scottish government, its politicians pushed hard for gender self-identification. Last year, a conference motion rejected the findings of the Cass report, because it was fucking bullshit. The Greens also believe Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza. The Greens also believe that Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza. And the new leader of the party in England and Wales, Zach Polanski, called for Israeli President Isaac Herzog to be arrested, which, is something that the International Criminal Court has called for, based on an arrest warrant that exists. The second signatory on that statement was one of Polanski's deputy leaders, Mothin Ali, a local councillor for a northern English suburb and a devout Muslim. He described his election as councillor as a win for the people of Gaza before shouting God is the greatest in Arabic. His statement condemned the decision to let Israeli weapons manufacturers exhibit their wares at an arms fair in London. On the subject of Israel, the Greens are unified, but Ali's candidacy for the deputy leadership over the summer was nearly derailed by his refusal to sign a pro-LGBT pledge. He said he was not signing any pledges because they can create pressure, turn allyship into performance politics, and even exclude those who are already doing the work. In an interview with a transgender activist within the party, Ali was asked if he believed that trans women are women, but he gave a classic politician's non-answer. He spoke about how both Muslims and trans people as marginalized groups were targeted by the far right. Honestly, if someone is not informed and doesn't understand the importance of affirming that trans women are women, that's a pretty good answer. He suggested that before colonialism, Eastern cultures were much more sympathetic to transgender and intersex people. That's pretty fucking strong, actually. Describing trans rights as a decolonial issue is actually pretty fucking strong shit. Notably, he did not say yes or no. This strategic ambiguity appears to have served him well because Ali won the deputy leadership on September 2nd. Okay, Helen, I am trying to not just go into insults because, I know it doesn't actually help to the intellectual discussion or the point of the article or analysis of how any of this stuff works, but you have just spent 2 paragraphs setting up the idea that because this guy is a Muslim, he hates trans people, when that's the opposite of what he said, and then you said him carefully not saying what he believes helped him win the deputy leadership. When Zach Polanski, who is gay and explicitly pro-trans, and who's gone on fucking Piers Morgan and said a woman can have a penis, and the real issue confronting women with penises is how long it takes the NHS to get around to removing them, right, because of the non-functional healthcare system, right? He won the leadership position. He won the number 1 spot. Good gracious. I'm rather frustrated. Okay. Theoretically, the Greens could be the big winners from the meltdown in your party. If so, either Ali will have to maintain his policy of sticking to vague generalities about his social views, or his progressive comrades will have to expand the range of acceptable beliefs within the party. Will they? She's just said he will have to keep being vague, or they will have to let him be a transphobe. She is dead certain he's a transphobe because he's a Muslim. The trouble here is that the British left, the party beyond the Democrats and Labour, What? The Democrats have nothing to do with... Whatever, it's for the Atlantic. The British left has two shibboleths that potential leaders are required to utter. The first is that Israel is committing a genocide. Yep. The second is that trans women are women. Yep. This is interesting. This might be indicative that she actually does believe Israel is committing a genocide, given that she had to put trans women are women in quotes, because it's so disgusting to her as an idea to say that someone who looks like a woman, talks like a woman, acts like a woman, exists in society as a woman, experiences misogyny, would be violently fucking killed in the worst conceivable way, just raped to death if put into a men's prison. Despite that just being the law of our country, by the way, and that just being a thing that is done by default. It is absolutely repulsive to her to say that someone who lives as a woman and experiences the world as a woman in every way and wants to be made physically to be a woman in every way, and is facing like hurdles to get to that place. And here, to be clear, I'm steel manning. Like I know I'm not including the complete variety of transgender expression possible, but I'm just saying that like it's so vile to her to say that trans women are women, even in the best case, that she has to put it in quotes. Maybe she does believe in the genocide. Maybe she does accept that it's a genocide. But the groups that hold these two positions do not neatly overlap. For the moment, when bombing and starvation in Gaza are regularly in the news, that doesn't always matter. But the experience of your party suggests that in the longer term, the British left and its US counterpart will have to decide how broad their coalition can be. Which faction, the progressives or the moderates, will give ground in service of an effective movement. That answer will define the fight against the ascendancy of the populist right. Okay, I'm just going to say this. Chat, please get your like reflections on this ready. Like start sharing your thoughts on this article in general, because I'd love to hear them and I want to have a bit of discussion at the end here. But I just want to say this about the end paragraph before you do. Which faction, the progressives or the moderates, will give ground in service of an effective movement? There is no effective moderate movement. The center has simply collapsed in the imperial core. It's over and dead. That's why the center is chasing the far right as fast as they can, because they can't let it be leftism, because that would actually challenge power. The progressives or the moderates is just a completely fake question, and like she's been talking this whole time about completely fake distinctions that she's trying to like hallucinate. This whole thing is just so bizarrely constructed. Like, she's really pushing hard to try and make this a thing. Chat, I'm going to be a little bit quiet for a second because I've just realized that I forgot to top up my electricity meter. And if I don't top it up right now, the whole house might go dark and the stream might cut out. So I'm going to focus very hard on that for a second. I would love to hear your thoughts about the article overall. I'm going to also, so I can focus on this properly, I'm going to just go in the intermission screen. I'll be back in a few. Okay, I'm back. Hello, hello. I'm back. I fixed it. The stream is not gonna suddenly cut out. We're okay. Firstly, Timeblind had a great comment here. You can work towards common ends without agreeing on literally everything. To say otherwise simply symbols a desire that nothing should occur. Yeah, I mean, I think it symbols a complete lack of any kind of contact with the organized left, how organizing works, or like, I mean, as with her repeated like sneery kind of quite teenage, the left can't organize, they're doing too much infighting. Throughout this article, it's like, it's just like anyone who's familiar with like the realities of organizing, like understands that this is a painful struggle towards coalition building that people are unfortunately fucking up at, and she's treating it as like a comic spectacle, because I guess on like quite an emotional level she understands that she's just not that at risk of any kind of like violence from fascists, so it's kind of a bit academic to her whether the country is fascist. Half convinced myself that that intermission track was a remix of Ezra because of the pic on screen. That makes sense, Volpix. Thing I was going to say about Ezra, yeah. So Ezra Klein said in that interview with Ta-Nehisi Coates, "I think we've let trans people down," and I said at the time that's really frustrating to see him say, because he works for the New York Times. He works for, like, you know, this complex of publications, and he's part of this milieu of people who contain so many virulent transphobes. And like the frustrating thing to experience as a trans person of, you know, politics of recent years is like the constant, I mean, there's many frustrating things to experience, but like specifically in this kind of like world of ideas of the commentariat, the frustrating thing is the constant refrain of the trans debate, the gender debate, and it's like it is just like seeing a debate between a climate truther and a climate scientist. Whenever there is an actually well-informed trans person allowed to speak at all in discussions around trans rights. And in that it's just like, it's like someone who's come expecting some kind of actually fact-based, rational discussion just be like yelled down by someone who doesn't live in reality. And the fact that TERFs have so successfully made this rhetorically about women's spaces and about cis women's like discomfort and feelings of unsafety and how much they are affected by trans women being in women's spaces, they think they're having a proportional discussion of trans rights if 99% of voices on the matter are cis people and 1% are trans people, and maybe even then they're just like, it's only a slightly disproportionate conversation if there are never any trans people. And it's fundamentally, you're talking about the access to basic dignity in society of a marginalized group. You're talking about there are people like me and there are people like Helen Lewis, right? Like, I am trans and she is cis. We are different kinds of people in this way. We are in different classes. And I experience social forces that she does not, right? I experience transphobia, which is a stigma towards people who change sex, right? It's a stigma towards people who are gender non-conforming, perceived to be transitioning or to be trans. I also experience transmisogyny, the unique social force at the intersection of transphobia and misogyny, right? This is a social force I experience that trans men don't experience typically. Like, there are social forces I am impacted by, and people like me try to talk to the rest of society about how society could be different to alleviate the negative effects of these social forces. And if there were like an open-minded, rational, liberal, democratic debate about this stuff, right? Like, we have democratic methods for how to deal with what if an issue affects a very small amount of the population, right? Like, It's not actually like a baffling, impossible to solve thing. But it's reasonable for trans people to be the majority of the voices in a conversation about trans rights, the same way it's reasonable for black people to be the majority of the voices in a conversation about reparations or seriously addressing like systemic anti-black racism in white supremacist societies and so on. But the whole of this has been just like a discussion between cis people, mostly one side being absolutely foaming at the mouth, rabid transphobes, really like pushing for the extermination of trans people. Some people who think they aren't that bad, like Helen Lewis. And then a bunch of cis people on the other side who range between very well informed and deferring to trans people's opinions on everything and not very well informed at all, but coming at it with some kind of broadly trans ally position. You know what? Like Ali, who she just described in the article, who said, like, this is an issue of white settler colonialist culture spreading over everything and conforming things to the patriarchal cisgender binary. Like, that's actually a trans ally position and not him hedging his bets or whatever. That's quite a strong position to come from. And yeah, he could probably do with talking to some more trans people to understand things better, but there wasn't an issue with what he said. To Distraction, thank you so much for tipping £30. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'm going to use it to buy treats. I might buy myself chocolate or some kind of silly outfit. Or a video game. Who knows? I will probably just buy food or pay my bills. I don't buy that many exciting, expensive things. Might spend it on a tattoo. I'm just really pushing the treats this stream. Everyone, please remember, if you like giving me treats, you can give me treats by subscribing or cheering or donating directly using Command Tip. Command Tip is like this. It goes exclamation mark TIP, and that's Command Tip, and there's the link. You can also go to my Patreon if you want to contribute to like my main source of income and support me in an ongoing way there and help to make my videos happen and kind of all my work happen. You know, it's my salary basically. It allows me to go and take a kind of unemployed interest in whatever I want, and it definitely like supports me living in a way that makes me able to give more unpaid labor to other projects. So, you know, it does support everything I'm doing. Elibu says, seriously, what he said should be something others also say. Yeah, he had a very good position on it and actually it just didn't actually sound like him hedging his bets, but she inferred he's transphobic because he is a Muslim. That's a thing, that's a kind of assumption people call racist. Okay, so let's look at some of the comments we've got in the chat about the article. Timeline says, acknowledging the possibility of solidarity and acknowledging that material factors can affect ideology and belief are both deeply harmful to the liberal project. Thus, the article exists. Yeah. I think that's a pretty good take. Volpic says, I half convinced myself... Oh no, that was the intermission track thing. I already read that out. Middle-earth Marxist says, I mean, it feels so much like so much regurgitated liberal slop from the last 10 years, punching left at all costs with the same tired nonsense, and clearly even she is tired but has no way to stop. Ouch. Fucking hell. Yeah, they don't know what their role is anymore. This is my point. This is why I'm comparing... You know, this is why we need to understand something common happening across liberal slop authors, right? Fenkirk, hey, welcome to the stream, says, this is the thing. All these journalists treat any kind of hardship like they are reading a wiki for a computer game. They will engage with it on a surface level, but they do not think it is real. That's pretty powerful, yeah. Like a wiki for a computer game, absolutely. Middle-earth Marxist says, surprised there wasn't a disclaimer at the bottom saying it was at least partly written by AI. It does feel super regurgitated. Vordrella says, journalism reduced to one person saying it's raining, another person saying it isn't, and the journalist just lets you know there's two people. It's good. Timeline says this is because a large faction of the right do not share the liberal project. Fascists, many conservatives such as... I don't quite understand the context that fits into. Yeah, these are all good thoughts. This, yeah, it was just, I think I was trying to, I wanted to read this one as another example of her thinking that she is this fly on the wall, invisible eyeball, you know, imperceptible, and just acting as a commentator. People hate the term influencer for cultural workers. Let's just say cultural workers, right? Like, not everyone would call a YouTuber an artist. Not everyone would call a columnist or think piece writer an artist exactly. Not everyone I want to describe would call themselves intellectuals. Not all of them write. Not all of them make videos or podcasts. Content creator is a very kind of blunt and like very commodity focused way of describing the thing. But like this broad term influencer, people hate it because of the association. I mean, primarily because of the association with young women, to be honest. It's just an association with like, it's just a misogynist association with stupidity and superficiality. But, oh crikey, some big stuff in chat. But we all have social influence. Like, people who have platforms have social influence, and it's something you need to think carefully about what you are doing with it. And most people don't, like, at all. But the way that, like, Helen Lewis will pose a question just like, how can the left ever get along, in response to the left quite successfully getting along? It's actually pretty obvious that she is poking it. Like, she's trying to make the people who are against the genocide drop trans people, just like give up on trans people completely, which they aren't going to do because on the ground trans people are showing up for these protests, for these actions, some direct actions, and being part of the organizing. Actually, the people who are opposing genocide don't find it hard at all to be like there for trans people on an emotional level, even if they don't understand everything and haven't like sat and talked things out with a trans person completely about like what the party line is or whatever. Like, it's just anyway. Audrey Stardust says, I'm in a rush to make my local No Kings demonstration before it wraps and before I have to take my partner to work, so I don't have long to formulate my thoughts. I may revisit this discussion in the VOD comments. Great, you can do that. But I'm just constantly choking on the noxious gas of cognitive dissonance when it comes to people's social/political perspectives. Perspectives. Like the amount of friends and coworkers who I found out are transphobic during a conversation with them where they're like, no, you're one of the good ones, or I just have a certain set of opinions about y'all, but y'all can like do what you feel, just really gets my fucking goat. And then to see someone in a position of like influence is writing articles that people will read and will favor their perspectives, while with perspectives specifically soaked in that cognitive dissonance is like a brine. Yeah, it's this is what we're like trying to look at, right? Is the complete dissonance, the complete lack of understanding of their role. Like, this is why Ezra Klein admitting he doesn't know what his role is so deeply significant, because they've all been doing this embarrassing, the thick of it style, like, politics for such a long time now, that's so concerned with symbols in such a useless and impotent way that you have to ask, like, if any of them ever knew what their role was supposed to be at all. Like, some of them will give you very strong answers about, like, what they think their role is. But at core, we can all see that they can't be comfortable with what their role is, because they're people who think for a living. And if they thought about this stuff, I can't imagine them sitting comfortably with it. Tori Kabori says, just got here a little while ago, but I think some of this article is about continuing to hammer that Overton window towards the guys in power, because the writer cannot emotionally accept the need for change. Yeah. Okay, see you, Locan. See you, Audrey Stardust. Have fun at your protest. I hope it is all chill and that you take appropriate precautions. Right. Okay. We're going to do the main article we came here for today. Elibu just said, I'd even say trans people are heavily overrepresented, like in a positive way when it comes to organizing. It's a complicated one. Yes, I think that trans people generally are very present in organizing. I think that trans women get repeatedly pushed out of organizing by trans misogynist forces in the left, and it's a once you start noticing it, you really see it everywhere, that people will be like, we're a trans inclusive feminist group, and it's a bunch of cis women and AFAB, non-binary or transmasc people, and it's like, oh, there's no trans women here, or I'm the trans woman, one of 2 or 3 trans women here, and it's just a very, very pernicious force. Like, people really, really hate trans women a lot, and it sucks. And then you see people making statements like, I want to address reproductive labor in organizing spaces, and point out that actually a lot of the effort to facilitate and make things happen and do reproductive labor in organizing is done by women and AFAB people. And it's like, yes, I know they've not said not trans women. I'm included in the demographic they've described, but when they've gone to lengths to say and AFAB people to be trans inclusive, they're blind to the problem that repeatedly happens. There are a lot of communities where trans women are relatively separatist because of how badly trans women are treated, even by other leftist and queer communities, and you'll just hit on pockets of this is just 300 trans women who know each other, and and it's the perfect inverse of other left spaces. But yes, despite this, despite this noticeable imbalance, still trans women and all trans people are overrepresented in organizing, because we just see society as really shit. We're just being treated really, really badly and want it to be different as soon as possible. Okay, we're going to read this article, and then I'm going to go hang out with my wife. We've been building up to this one. It's, as soon as I saw it, and before I read it, I screenshotted it and put it on Blue Sky to say, this is going to be liberal slop this week, because holy shit. We're going to read Helen Lewis's recent hit piece. And this was even recommended to me on my Firefox homepage without me going to look up The Atlantic at all. Helen Lewis has never recommended to me. I watched Stand Up in Saudi Arabia, What the Surreal Riyadh Comedy Festival Foretold About the Kingdom's Future. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay. Before we begin, firstly, if you're enjoying the stream, consider paying for the stream. You can subscribe or cheer or donate directly using Command Tip, or you can become a patron at patreon.com/Sophie from Mars. It's nice when I get paid for my job, and I'm doing my job right now, so consider giving me some money, which I will spend on treats. But the actual thing I was going to say, before we start this, I'd like us to think a little bit about Orientalism, right? When people talk about Orientalism, I think I see their mind's eye do this thing quite a lot, right? We're talking about the process of Orientalism, the process of socio-political mystique generated around cultures outside of white supremacy. And people's minds go to Victorian travel writers, the people in the most hardcore time and place and social positioning to be the core of what we understand Orientalism to be, the construction of the idea of quote unquote the Orient. Okay. People cast their minds into this like space 200 years ago and think that Orientalism can't be a force that's going on today and happens very casually in all sorts of ways. Or also, like, just because it's called Orientalism, people like often just think it can't be being done to like indigenous people or Africans or South Americans, Eastern Europeans even. Like, it is a process of commodifying a culture seen as other and outside and selling it as commodity and consumable to the people in dominant hegemonic culture. It is a process that turns people's real lives and culture and society into subjects in bell jars to be looked at under microscopes. It is a process that contributes significantly to the socio-political domination of those cultures by the hegemonic normative culture, and it's ongoing all the time, right? And it happens for all sorts of reasons, and it's done by a bajillion people all the time. Culture is not a monolith, but rather comprises the almost infinitesimal actions of individuals, and I'd like us to think hard about Orientalism in this piece, which is not, I'm going to be clear, not going like, I met the crown prince and he was a spooky mystic or something like this, right? It's not the most like clear-cut, obvious screaming at you example of, as I say earlier, like Victorian travel writers kind of Orientalism. But it absolutely still is Orientalism, and it's also a bunch of other bizarre things besides. So if people don't know, the Riyadh Comedy Festival is a new event where a bunch of cancelled comedians, they invited actually quite a lot of different comedians. Not all of them are like explicitly super, super cancelled, but quite a few of them were invited for a massive cash sum to perform at this comedy festival in Saudi Arabia. And yep, let's get into it. Sometimes you have to ask yourself, how did I get here, sitting in Saudi Arabia, listening to Louis C.K. do jokes about Barely Legal magazine? Yes, Helen, you're so quirky. Honestly, I thought it would be funny. The instant I heard about the Riyadh Comedy Festival, I pleaded with the editor of this magazine to send me. Oh, Christ. It's already so much. Despite a series of legal reforms over the past decade, Saudi Arabia remains one of the most conservative Muslim countries in the world, while Louis C.K. is famous for his foul mouth and his record of masturbating in front of a succession of unimpressed women, a match made in heaven. I get that she's trying to be snarky and funny, but this is a strange and flippant way to describe sexual assault. My boss suggested that I take a male chaperone, which would allow me to move more freely in a place that remains deeply segregated by sex. Sadly, my husband declined to use his precious vacation allowance on the trip, and my 80-year-old father would rather stay home in England and watch cricket. It's very funny to me. It's very, very funny to me that the two closest men in her family were just both like, nah. Like, nah, no worries. Like, nah, I'm just not into it. No thanks. That sounds actually really shit. Anyway, so my long-suffering editor Dante stepped up instead. Our presence would be a test of how much Saudi Arabia has really changed. I'm on my second husband, Dante is on his first. Helen, you are not in any danger because you have had a divorce. You are completely off your rocker. Like, what are you talking about? I'm on my second husband. That is not the same as Dante being gay, and neither case is the same as a Saudi being divorced or a Saudi woman wanting a divorce or a Saudi man being gay. As a white woman, you're going to be just fucking fine. I find it completely asinine, like, as a cishet white woman talking this way, like, throughout this article, she's going to talk about the serious, serious danger of herself getting arrested. And frankly, I think it just serves as an advert for Saudi Arabia. I think it just serves as an appeal to people who would like to think of themselves as really edgy and cool. The appeal of, like, at any moment they could get snatched up for going to this place. But let's just be clear about what we've got so far. She saw that a sex offender was going to be doing a stand-up routine in Saudi Arabia, a country that uses slaves and is, like, built on slavery and continually uses slaves to this day. And she said the Atlantic should give money to Saudi Arabia for me to go there and write a piece and tell everyone about what it was like. Right. Cool. Both of us have freely and sometimes enthusiastically committed what are technically capital offences under Saudi law. The editor-in-chief, clearly beginning to enjoy himself, urged us to stay at the Ritz-Carlton. That's the very luxurious but also shining-like hotel where Saudi Arabia's crown prince imprisoned his rivals in 2017. Room service was included, plus a bit of light torture. You are joking about people being tortured. This is like... There's an element of cringe to this article, and I have read this before now, but there's an element that we'll encounter throughout this article of cringe where I don't think Helen understands, like, edgy humour very well at all. Like, she seems to understand all edgy humour as implicitly being kind of the same thing. And she tries to do a bit of her own edgy humour, and she's just, you know, just some real clangers like this. When she asks her husband to vacation with her, he says he wants to share a tent with her exactly as much as the gender left do. That's actually very funny. Thank you, Time Blind. Right. Completing his ascent to absolute power. So far they've paid for travel there and they've paid to stay in the Ritz. So she's in a 5-star hotel joking about being tortured. The trip would be like something out of Hunter S. Thompson, our boss said. Okay, so there's another point for this being a big ad for this whole thing, right? Like, you'll be like Hunter S. Thompson. If you do this, it'll be just like Hunter S. Thompson. With one difference. No drugs. Our being beheaded by sword, the usual method of execution in Saudi Arabia, would be bad publicity for the Atlantic and leave the magazine down an editor at a time when we are already short-handed. That's so crazy. How did you end up short-handed and not having enough editorial staff? It's almost like no one wants to fucking work with you. We had, he implied, plenty of writers to spare. Boo. Louis C.K. was one of dozens of prominent comedians who had agreed to play the festival. Most are Americans, and many like C.K. have had previous encounters with left-wing cancel culture. Kevin Hart, who quit presenting the Oscars over past homophobic jokes, Aziz Ansari, the subject of one of the more unfair Me Too incidents. Like, I'm sorry, but she just needs to go out of her way here. Like, she needs to, like, put extra words into her article to tell us that she thinks that the sexual assault that Aziz Ansari did was just not that big of a deal. Cool. Dave Chappelle, whose jokes about trans people prompted protests at Netflix, plus a whole bunch of independent podcasters whose material would never make it onto Saturday Night Live. Louis C.K.'s co-headliner would be Jimmy Carr, who got into medium trouble in Britain for a joke about killing travellers, and rather larger trouble for engaging in an offshore tax avoidance scheme. Left-wing cancel culture. Offshore tax avoidance scheme. All right. What could stand-up comedy look like in a theocracy? Would enough crude jokes about incest, paedophilia, and anal sex really usher in Western liberal democracy to Saudi Arabia? Ahead of the Riyadh event, I had already enjoyed weeks of watching comedians scramble to explain why they had agreed to perform for a brutal authoritarian regime. So I'll pause here and just say, what she's doing is engaging with this, like, when people watch bad movies to laugh at them, right? Like, ultimately, like, people doing that and people posting about that or writing about it or sharing a riff track, like, they are encouraging other people to watch the movie still. Like, we all understand that, right? Like, that's not like a hard concept to grasp in the slightest. Like, without a meaningful moral condemnation of what makes Saudi Arabia so morally contemptible and a call for people to politically organize to change it and maybe a look into the political forces in Saudi Arabia a little bit, like, you know, responsible reporting on this topic. This all just is an ad. This is just all an ad. I mean, to be clear, not that I'm doing a massive amount of that stuff myself, but I think that given that I'm trying to unpick the slop that Helen is producing here, I don't think my content serves as an ad for people to go read more liberal slop. We're trying here to give people the tools, hopefully, that when they encounter this stuff and find it frustrating, they don't just revert to a knee-jerk, like, find the parts of their phrasing about identity politics that I found upsetting and then make a tweet about it. I'd like people to have an understanding of the systematic production of liberal slop and its meaning and purpose in an ecosystem of political commentary. The podcaster Tim Dillon, this bit's really funny. The podcaster Tim Dillon said on his show that he'd accepted $375,000 to look the other way, and in any case, there are so many beautiful things that have happened as a result of forced labour. He flashed up a picture of the pyramids, which were located in a completely different Arab country, to underline the point. Yeah, that's right, Helen. You know so much about Arab culture. You know so much about all the different Arab countries. That's why. That's why you spent all that time arguing that a guy must be transphobic just because he's a Muslim. Fuck's sake. Thank you so much to Distraction for subscribing at tier 1. Timeblind says, wanting to murder travellers is actually the only thing that unites the entire country. No, yes, anti-traveller racism is really bad in the UK. I just wanted to say not the entire country, obviously. Like, we just, like... It's like when people say Turf Island, I'm like, yes, Britain is quite uniquely transphobic compared to basically any other culture. But there are also trans people here. Like, who are also more transphobic than other trans people. Sorry. Saudi Arabia, showing an unexpected grasp of comic timing, promptly canned him from the festival. Dylan said his manager had told him, they heard what you said about them having slaves, they didn't like that. That's actually just really funny. Like, he said, I've been paid to look the other way, and I love slavery, actually. And they said, what the fuck, bro? We don't have slaves. How dare you say that? And now he has... I was just saying this to Abby and Nat yesterday. Like, now he has 2 items in his inventory. Defended slavery and no $375,000. Like, he has the presence of the absence of $375,000 sitting there in front of him at all times, as well as defended slavery. Really cool stuff. Jim Jeffries, an Australian comic best described as a Temu Ricky Gervais, whatever, stepped on the same rake. Referring to the killing and dismemberment of the regime critic Jamal Khashoggi in 2018, Jeffries told the podcaster Theo Von, one reporter was killed by the government. Unfortunate, but not a fucking hill that I'm gonna die on. People could criticize golfers or soccer players for taking blood rails, but not comedians. Basically, we are freedom of speech machines being sent over there, he said. This is very interesting. Basically, we are freedom of speech machines being sent over there. Well, we know how much Helen Lewis loves freedom of speech, so maybe that's actually a big drive for her in going. Sorry, I'm getting an update regarding freedom of speech machines. They will not be sent over there. Jeffries disappeared from the lineup too. I do think this is quite funny. Like, the guys who compromised their principles, if they had principles to begin with, whatever, to publicly defend themselves going there. Like, they stuck their neck out to be like, no, I'm Saudi Arabia's good little boy. I'm doing exactly as I'm told, and they fucked it up so badly that now they're not getting the money, and everyone's mad at them. It's pretty powerful stuff. The festival is an outgrowth of Vision 2030, the grand Saudi project to prepare for the kingdom's post-oil future. The old Saudi brand was austere theocracy, but the new one is fun, but still with beheading. The Portuguese soccer player Cristiano Ronaldo was lured into a Riyadh team, Al Nassr, for about $200 million tax-free. The annual Esports World Cup, held in the city this summer, had a prize pool of about $70 million. The Six Kings Slam tennis event, held this week in the city and broadcast on Netflix, offers the half-dozen players involved a potential payout of $6 million for 2 or 3 matches. A group led by the kingdom's public investment fund just dropped $55 billion to buy Electronic Arts, the company behind FIFA and other video games. Jared Kushner was also involved in the deal. Entities controlled by Saudi leaders plan to invest up to $1 billion in a Hollywood studio. So what's our point we're supposed to be understanding here? Vision 2030 is a plan to make Saudi seem fun. Saudis have a lot of money. This is like not news to anyone who's ever heard of Saudi Arabia. Okay. The man holding Saudi Arabia's giant and extremely open checkbook is 40-year-old Mohammed bin Salman, universally known as MBS, a millennial crown prince for a country where 2/3 of the population is younger than 30. MBS has undoubtedly modernized the country, allowing women to drive and standing down the hated religious police. Brackets, yay! But he has done this through a reign of terror in which his opponents have been executed, exiled, or intimidated into silence. Brackets, oh. She's really got like I went to a stand-up festival energy here. Like compared to her other writing, she's really got like the horrible bug that like your most insufferable friend gets whenever they see a professional comedian. They think they're the comedian, and for the next like week they're just talking like this. Like, okay. The comedians on that stage are performing in a gilded cage, the exiled Saudi satirist Ghanem El-Masriya wrote before the festival, adding, "In MBS's Saudi Arabia, the punchline is always prison." That's actually funny as fuck, right? Like, this is such bars. The guy he's been exiled from the country for being a comedian, and he's like, yeah, that's actually pretty funny. Okay. Is she, like, advertising for Saudi investors? This is what I'm saying. Like, it's actually... Oh. This is what I'm saying. It's actually just, like... It's just an ad. Like, it's just an ad. Okay. Do I want to read all about her trip? It's a bit kind of tedious, but she does also have a lot more of her doing the stuff she's doing. We're going to jump ahead to this paragraph. The Louis C.K. gig was held in Riyadh's entertainment district, The Boulevard, a glorified parking lot that is also home to a WWE experience, an esports arena, and numerous stores selling comic book figurines. Last year, the district hosted a pop-up Harry Potter world. Aha! Allowing Saudi Arabians to imagine they were playing Quidditch or drinking non-alcoholic butterbeer. It was not that long ago the anti-witchcraft unit of the Ministry of the Interior had banned Harry Potter books from the kingdom. This year they're getting a temporary theme park based on Mr. Beast, the most popular YouTuber in the world. To promote the comedy festival, the entire place was decked out with expensive phony-on signs of ungrammatical menace. Your laugh from this way, and ha ha ha. Ha 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 isn't ungrammatical. And statues of the festival's mascot, a giant smiling microphone with arms and legs. I walked past made-for-Instagram street furniture and a professional photographer taking a picture of a smiling family. Dad, 2 kids, and a mom in full face veil. Right. Do you have any more commentary here? This is just left hanging as we're all supposed to go, whoa! Whoa! Muslims are so strange. Why? Whoa! Okay. We entered the main venue, A&B Arena, after a hopeful dash across several lanes of traffic. Sidewalks and crosswalks are no more reliable here than in America, and a short line to pass through metal detectors and bag up our phones to prevent recording. I had worried about attracting attention by taking notes during the show, so instead of a reporter's pad, I had brought a pastel pink gratitude journal, which I will expense. I don't really understand this. Like, I don't understand the logic here, and it's kind of impossible to understand, to know if she would have been in trouble if she had an obvious reporter's pad. Because she didn't, so she wasn't, so we just can't know. But anyway, like I said, you know, she is selling the idea of being, like, edgy to people by going to Saudi Arabia and, like, engaging in events there, but in a post-ironic, detached, hipsterish way. The crowd was mostly male, just like it is at American comedy nights, and the much shorter female security line was staffed by brisk women in niqabs. No food or drink was permitted in the arena, not even water. This pained Dante, who as a good American believes hydration is next to godliness. After we took our seats, he observed that this event would be an obvious location for a terrorist atrocity. This really got me in the mood for a night of incest jokes. Just gonna think about that one for a second. They sat down, and Dante said this would be an obvious location for a terror attack. This really got me in the mood for a night of incest jokes. This is what I mean, that, like, she doesn't understand edgy humor and just thinks of it as all kind of the same thing. Wintry Me is playing Hades 2 just popped up on Steam notifications. I should change the display so it's a window capture instead of a display capture. This is don't need to just be telling everyone what my Steam friends are playing right now. Is that the right one? Let's change over to there. There we go. Joe, you'll stop being doxxed now. Yeah, she just really doesn't understand edgy humor. It's this monolith of just like rude things that people say, and this kind of like also is the core of her completely constructed discussion in this article about whether whether Louis C.K. saying rude stuff, talking about anal sex or something, will be good for free speech in Saudi Arabia. Like, does anyone think that? Like, it's stuff that is maybe maybe indicative of progress of freedom of speech in Saudi Arabia if people are talking about stuff that like a very socially conservative person would consider rude, but like I don't know, it's just a bit fascinating to me. Dante made a joke about terrorist attack. This really got me in the mood for a night of incest jokes. The first surprise was that I knew the opening performer, the Irish comedian Andrew Maxwell. So she was like, the gig was all stinky men, and I'm here to see a terrible man who's a sex offender who fucking got mega cancelled for sexual assault, and a bunch of other cancelled people, some of whom have done like big financial crimes like Jimmy Carr. I'm here to see these terrible people in this terrible place. Oh wait, I know that guy. Just like, my first surprise was that I was actually completely comfortable and in my milieu among a society built on slavery where a bunch of horrible people perform to a bunch of stinky people. Like, okay. Then Andrew Maxwell's jokes, and then followed by a Saudi comedian who's big on Arabic language YouTube. Al-Karala, the Saudi comedian, enjoined us all to give a round of applause to the Crown Prince for being such a great leader of the country. A patriotic innovation I hope makes it to New York's comedy cellar in the coming Mamdani era. A patriotic innovation I hope makes it to New York's comedy cellar in the coming Mamdani era. So, where that was going, right, was like, the comedians have to tell everyone to clap for the Crown Prince because they could get in trouble otherwise. And what's going on in America right now is, if you express opinions against Trump's opinions and the general MAGA party line, you could be subject to a harassment and doxing campaign. There are a bunch of comedians who don't want to say anything to speak out against Trump right now in America, and it seems like the really, 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 really really obvious joke here is he told us all to clap for the Crown Prince for being such a gracious host. And Trump should be taking notes, right? Like, this is it's so clearly where it seems like it's going. But no, Zoran Mamdani is going to do it because, just like MBS, he's a brown man. Sorry, this is some racist fucking shit. Like, she just writes some honky ass articles. That's literally it. Just like, this is just, I'm ringing the cracker bell. That's all I can really say here. Like, it's embarrassing that you wrote this, Helen. Like, it's quite racist and embarrassing that you wrote this, and not in like a, ooh, edgy, risque way. It's just like, there was a joke here that was so obvious and funnier, and you went out of your way to be racist because you understand rudeness and edginess to be the same thing with no kind of edginess needs to push against people's expectations for a reason. It needs to push against people's expectations because it's doing something, right? Because the risk is just being a cunt to people. Stuart Lee did a bit where he said the N-word. The point of the bit was that he was talking about a black comedian who had been censored by the BBC because he'd said the N-word. And that's a black guy. There's nothing wrong with him saying the N-word, but the BBC didn't want him saying it and stopped giving him attention, right? The bit included Stuart Lee saying the N-word to make the point that he as a white comedian would get away with it where the black comedian would not, and that's an unequal and racist dynamic. And the risk there is that he is just a white guy saying the N-word. And, like, personally, I don't think it paid off. It's made me less enthused to watch Stuart Lee's stuff. That's an example of edginess, like, and how the risk works. And he's just, like, yeah, like, that's the way that the payoff works. I don't see what Helen would even be trying to achieve by making this joke about Mamdani. And so if there was an edgy thing she was trying to challenge and speak like truth to power or whatever here, like, she's just failed to communicate what it is at all, and the risk has not paid off. Everyone except Dante obliged me with apparent enthusiasm. Everyone except Dante and me, I completely misread that. Everyone except Dante and me, with the applause, obliged with apparent enthusiasm. God, what if this is what gets me this is what I get arrested for, I thought. Again, you're so edgy and cool for going to Saudi Arabia. Oh no, what if you get arrested? Blah, blah, blah. It's just a fucking ad. Then it was on to the main attractions. Jimmy Carr bounded on stage, dressed in an immaculate three-piece suit, his face looking freshly ironed. He has a distinctive whooping laugh like a haunted seagull. About 3/4 of Carr's usual material is based on the premise that he is a sex offender, and this event was no exception. I'm a little bit haram, he said at one point. Then he swerved into a routine about how you can't say the R word and mixed race anymore, you have to say Harry and Meghan. Just like astonishingly horrid material, just like also, you can't say mixed race? What are you on about? Literally, what are you on about? I don't... Who's saying that you can't say mixed race? That's not fucking real. And... ban... you. Cool. Jog on, dickhead. Okay, chat, we may be getting some amount of, like... 4chan creeps or whatever coming through. Seem like a couple of them in chat, so just be aware of that. And mods, if you can keep an eye and ban these people, that'd be helpful. Kind Kara is not an especially political comedian. He does jokes about stopping his girlfriend from snoring thanks to his noise-cancelling fists, and jokes about how his rape fantasy is someone goes to jail for rape. Hang on, sorry, I need to repause that. Kara is not especially political. He does a joke where the joke is he's a domestic abuser, and he does jokes about how how the police systemically ignore sexual violence. Okay, I see her point. She's saying he's a centrist in his comedy on this kind of stuff. Just two people who are here to be dickheads. Like, I honestly mean this. Like, I want you to use your time in a nice way. Like, talk to a friend or something. Like, transphobic harassment or harassment of any kind, like, you're gonna post in here, you're gonna get banned by my mods really fast. No one here honestly thinks I'm a man or look like a man. Like, you're just embarrassing yourself and, like, spending your evening in a shit and embarrassing way. Or maybe it's morning where you are or whatever. Just spending your life in a shit and embarrassing way. I'm not particularly bothered about it. You're just gonna get banned by my mods. So, yeah. Yeah, just, like, I honestly, please, like, go just, like, hang out with a friend, play some games on a Discord call, or watch a movie or something. It's really, like, sad. And I'm not saying that in an insulting way either. This is a really hard thing with, like, our language. Like, I'm not trying to be mean. I just literally, like, it saddens me that, like, you spend your time like this. Nonetheless, he did push the limits of acceptable speech in Saudi Arabia. After a riff about euthanasia, he added, "We wouldn't let a dog live like this, and yet people are allowed to go on living in what can only be described as," here he paused for dramatic effect, "Yemen." Ooh, Jesus fucking Christ. The audience gasped. The recent US-backed Saudi war on Houthi rebels in Yemen was high on the list of things not to talk about in Riyadh. Okay. Oh, also, chat, if you're enjoying the stream, please remember you can pay for the stream. You can subscribe or cheer or donate directly using Command Tip. It is nice when I get paid for doing work. Also, it might make these guys realize that they are hanging out in a space where people like me and like what I do. Which, like, having, I don't know, 40 viewers at the moment, like, for 2.5 hours of streaming should already be a strong enough message, but... The audience gasped. The US-backed Saudi war on Houthi rebels in Yemen was high on the list of things not to talk about in Riyadh. That is actually kind of interesting. Like, he did actually... see, that's an example of exactly what I'm talking about, and as much as I, like, hate to hand it to Jimmy Carr, like, yes, she's right. He did actually push at the boundaries that have been dictated by the powerful people running the show. Later on, Carr asked, "Any lesbians here tonight?" The room's atmosphere contracted, a sudden tightening. Would anyone out themselves as gay in Saudi Arabia? He held the tension for a moment, then added, "Of course not, it's a comedy show." The entire crowd relaxed into laughter. Bloody lesbians, they can't take a joke. Right. Yeah, I mean, like I say, there's, like... that is him being edgy in a way where you can clearly pause what the thing is he's trying to do. There isn't that much of a risk. They're not actually going to arrest him for telling a joke like this. And, like, the punchline of the joke... like, the edginess and the humor comes from the way in which he's, like, challenging there. He's, like, talking about gay people existing. But the punchline is, like... whatever. Like, he's not making fun very directly at all, or, like, of MBS or his regime. Okay. The French have a brilliant phrase, esprit d'escalier, or staircase wit, meaning that pang of realization as you leave a situation that you could have unloaded with absolute zinger. God. It was so obvious already. See ya, TTK. It's been lovely to have you here, Ree. Really appreciate you. it's been obvious already, as I said, that she's got like the just saw a comedy show brain, and she needs to like come up with zingers really badly. And when I read this sentence, my stomach sank. This is how I feel about missing the opportunity as Louis C.K. walked on stage and reacted to whoops and jeers to shout, "Get your cock out." Har har. Got him, Helen. She should have actually, though. And then this fucking entire paragraph is so cringe. Maybe it's better that I didn't. The British government advises travellers to avoid behaving in ways the Saudi authorities assess disrupt the public order. But just imagine the celebrities solemnly promoting an amnesty petition to free me from detention. The editor of this magazine would even hire me a lawyer. Yeah, they probably would hire you a lawyer to get you out of prison if you were in prison, which you wouldn't be. That's not going to happen. That's just not fucking real. What the fuck are you on about? As for, like, the, like, self-aggrandizement of this fantasy of celebrities solemnly promoting an amnesty petition to free me from detention? Nah. Sorry. Just, like, nah. That's not real, babe. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry to say this one. That's just not real. Louis C.K. was once the titan of thoughtful American comedy, evidence of a strange recent trend of treating comics as public intellectuals, even philosopher kings, rather than entertainers whose success is measured in laughs per minute. What an insulting way to talk about comedy, by the way. Like, if you're here, like, writing a piece about comedy, like, about comedy and how it functions and the importance of it, and, like, you've gone to a different part of the world entirely to see a comedy show because you want to think and talk about comedy. Entertainers whose value should be measured in laughs per minute? Are you serious? Like, really, really seriously, like, is this how you view comedy? Because that's really, like, deeply insulting to basically every comedian who's ever lived. He had a sitcom, Louis, that was loosely based on his life, and he had the admiration and envy of his peers. Then in 2017, the New York Times published one of the most consequential stories of the #MeToo era. On stage, Louis C.K. was doing highly praised feminist routines about how men were the #1 threat to women. If you're a guy, try to imagine you could only date a half bear, half lion, and you're like, oh, I hope this one's nice. Off stage, he liked to ask female comedians if he could masturbate in front of them. When you have power over another person, asking them to look at your dick isn't a question, it's a predicament for them. He wrote in his apology statement, adding, I have spent my long and lucky career talking and saying anything I want. I will now step back and take a long time to listen. I recall from Super Wolf's video, this happened to The Simpsons. It's the reason for the sharp decline in quality of The Simpsons. 8 laughs per minute was the metric around season 28. So season 26, Vordrella says. Thanks for that, Vord. That's really interesting. I've been meaning to watch I thought it looked really good, and I think I watched a little bit of it, Super Eye Patch Wolf's video about The Simpsons. I've been meaning to go back to it. What on earth does the Philosopher King's link point to? Yeah, I would actually like to know. Unfortunately, I have been baited. Let's let that load. He took 3 years, after which he released a special called Sincerely Louis C.K. with a self-pitying message. You all have your thing, he told the audience. I don't know what your thing is. You're so fucking lucky that I don't know what your thing is. The title of his 2021 special, Sorry, can be read either as an apology for his behaviour or a frustrated, sarcastic response to the depth of the backlash. In that routine, he joked that COVID had forced everyone to live like him, a hermit. But Sincerely Louis C.K. won a Grammy, and by 2023, C.K. was back to selling out. But Sincerely Louis C.K. won a Grammy? Crikey, I didn't know that. That's crazy. Like, I'm not, like, particularly fussed about it. I don't care that much what the Grammys do. I'm not sure I think they should exist. Whatever. Classic anarchist, abolish everything position. But just, like, yeah, I didn't realize that. And it's like, do I have much to say about this? Not massively. Just, like, it's understandable why people would not really want to see Louis C.K. talking about how hard his life has been because of what he did. I think there is merit when people talk about... I forgot who it was now. It was LeVar Burton. Said that, like, it's not cancel culture, it's consequence culture. And like, I think there's some merit to that idea that like, I think it still gives too much ground to punitive logic, because like we have to look at like, are consequences applied fairly to everyone and justly, and obviously immediately no, this is what happens in all punitive systems. But in the case of Louis C.K., like, yeah, it's like all pretty fair, to be honest. And like, and yeah, anyway. He was back to selling out Madison Square Garden. His new work hasn't appeared on streaming services, though, and he has continued to sell his specials for $5 or $10 a pop directly from his website. When he appeared on Bill Mayer's show, ridiculous, ahead of the Riyadh gig, comedy was, quote, a great way to get in and start talking, he said. It was his first television appearance in 8 years. For someone like CK, or Dave Chappelle or Kevin Hart, performing in Riyadh doubles as a middle finger. Oh, I've scrolled up too far. I should keep it there. I forgot I zoomed in now. This is just another attempt of hers to prove she understands comedy. Yeah. A middle finger to the liberal mainstream. You tried to knock me down, but I'm still making bank. To me, the audience that greeted CK's entrance with a standing ovation and sorry seemed to be brushing aside those pesky women who tried to take their idol away from them. At the time, Chappelle defended CK, ringing up a woman to jerk off by saying, "Bitch, you don't know how to hang up a phone?" My position is different. Is it too much to ask people not to ejaculate in professional settings? Her position is it too much? Yeah, no, I think I'd have the... I'm gonna say... you will all be shocked by this. I find both Chappelle and Helen Lewis's takes really wrong and upsetting. Just like, no, it's not actually an issue of like unprofessionalism. Like, I don't care if people have sex at work. I care if people abuse power dynamics to harm people in any setting. Like, it's whatever. I've just realized this might be a joke because Helen Lewis is a comedian now. So, Louis C.K.'s material has always been morbid and self-excoriating, but his set in Riyadh was a real downer. He was old, falling apart, and worst of all, resigned to dating women his own age. Dante told me it wouldn't be fair to write here that he bombed, since the incredible opportunity for bad taste puns. It wouldn't be fair to write here that he bombed, despite the incredible opportunity for bad taste puns that would provide. People who don't have much funny to say often do this kind of thing, right? Like, there's an opportunity here for me to make really funny jokes. You can tell me what you know what the jokes would be. You just could even begin to imagine the jokes of how funny all the jokes would be if I made the jokes. And you're just like, what are the puns? Whatever. I can't honestly say the set was rapturously received either. When CK announced he was about to wrap up, a small stream of people decided to head out early to beat the traffic. The instant he stepped off stage, the remaining crowd stampeded for the exits rather than hoping for an encore. The best compliment you could pay the set is that he didn't appear to have altered it much for local sensibilities. The worst you could say about it is exactly the same. He joked about how much he hated jury duty, not a problem in Saudi Arabia, how much he loathed the rain, Saudis would love rain, and how disgusted he was by the elderly woman in his building who wore little shorts and a tube top. That's like, I don't know if Louis C.K. thinks the stuff that he's doing is like through a lens of like a character performance or something or whatever. I don't know the specific jokes that he made, but it's just like, you'd think he would avoid making a joke like this. Anyway, Dante is also trying hard to be edgy, it seems. Yeah, I mean, they're peas in a pod, right? Like, just so you know, chat, I'm going to, when I get to the end of this, and we still have a little way to go, I'm going to wrap up the stream then, because I'm already sensing I'm going to run past when I thought I was going to tonight, and I do want to get to chilling. I've had a very busy weekend. But also, if you're enjoying the stream, please consider paying for the stream. You can subscribe or cheer or donate directly using Command Tip, because I like to be able to pay my bills and also do things I like and buy things I like. So consider treating me to a treat. That's my ad for my links. There you go. Only once did he acknowledge the cultural divide when introducing a long and particularly bleak section about putting his elderly father in a care home. That scenario might not land in Arab culture, he said, because you're compassionate and shit. When CK launched into the bit on Barely Legal magazine, I thought, honestly, when was the last time anyone saw a physical porn mag? By the end of the night, I was somewhat unexpectedly annoyed on behalf of the kingdom. You drop 6 or 7 figures to fly in Louis CK and he won't even write some new material? Disrespectful. Send this man to the Ritz-Carlton. God, she's insufferable. Okay. One of the questions I wanted to answer in Riyadh was this. Who is the audience for a Louis CK gig in Saudi Arabia? The answer turned out to be a 60-40 mix of locals and expats. Shocking! There's a bunch of white people there. The two groups are easy to distinguish because a lot of Saudi men in the audience wore the ankle-length white tobe, I don't know how to pronounce this, and a traditional headdress. Most Saudi women, despite the relaxation of the modesty laws, wear niqabs in public, covering their entire face apart from the eyes. Some have jury-rigged these out of COVID masks alongside a regular headscarf. The Westerners, by contrast, are in pants and shirts, and sometimes even shorts. The Saudi Tourism Authority asks visitors only to cover their elbows and knees. Within a 5-star hotel like the Ritz-Carlton, anything goes. I saw a man who wasn't Louis C.K. waiting for the elevator in swim trunks. I saw a man who wasn't Louis C.K. waiting for the elevator in swim trunks and an open bathrobe. It's got the cadence that she's trying to tell a joke here. I'm gonna assume it's really funny to everyone else out of generosity to Helen Lewis. There is another group in Saudi society, although, unsurprisingly, they were not conspicuous at the Louis C.K. show. More than 40% of the country's population are migrant workers from countries such as India, Bangladesh, and the Philippines, flown over to work in hotels and the construction industry. When I arrived at the airport, the immigration line was filled with the occupants of 2 planes that had just arrived from Dhaka and Mumbai. Every single person I saw was a man. Okay, she is actually discussing it. Here we go. The Riyadh Metro, which opened in December, okay, it's really pretty, reflects the tripartite nature of Saudi society. The trains have 3 carriages. First class, which is filled with men in thobes. Family, home to foreign couples and women delicately lifting their niqab to sip iced coffee. And single, disproportionately the preserve of African and South Asian men. The Riyadh Metro is far quieter, cleaner, and more efficient than, say, the New York subway. However, like so much Saudi luxury, it requires a supply of cheap labor last seen in English country houses of the 19th century. Just say slavery. Just say slavery. What are you doing? But also, like, not last seen there. Like, slavery hasn't actually been, like, gone from the... Sorry, I just saw the comment. Catgirl Steph said, alleged humor. I'm inferring there is a punchline there. Like, that something should make you laugh. As we passed through Al Uraba station, I watched a man on his hands and knees polishing the metal rivets on the platform. The gender imbalance in Saudi Arabia is deeply skewed. If you include migrants, the population has millions more men than women. This is a worry in a society that has fretted about the radical potential of alienated young men since at least 1979. Alienated young men. Yeah, okay. When a fundamentalist militia stormed Mecca, the British novelist Hilary Mantel spent 4 years in Jeddah as the wife of a geologist in the 1980s and found the experience so stifling she wrote a novel about it. If you left your husband's side in the supermarket, some sad man followed you and tried to touch you up in the frozen fish, she recalled later. You were probably a prostitute anyway, most European women were. Male desperation, loneliness and need, the misunderstandings they breed, these hung in the refrigerated air, permeating public spaces like dry ice. With so much wealth sloshing about, many young Saudi men had little need to work, but they also had few Sharia-approved outlets for leisure. Hardline clerics forbade musical performances, alcohol, and even all-you-can-eat buffets. That's crazy. I had no idea those were banned. This whole alienated young men paragraph, it's just like... It's just like she'll do identity politics when it's evil. Like, she'll do like, I care a lot about this group when it's the wrong group. Like, poor men. It's the male loneliness epidemic. Once again, like the poor men being treated so badly or whatever. Like the gender imbalance in that society is indicative of a lot of material and class like problems that are like running all through their society, and like the lack of the prospect of being able to have a family definitely will be having a sustained negative effect on a whole bunch of men that will have an effect on their outlook and their politics and so on. But just like, it's like, how would I even start explaining it? It's like chicken and egg, right? Like the US presence in the region has promoted like theocratic Islamic politics so much because it makes it like an easy region for the American empire to have control of. Schmarty says in chat, finally someone speaks up for the incels. Yeah, I just like, here's like liberal feminist Helen Lewis. After 9/11, the House of Saud was becoming alarmed at what it had indulged and exported by giving clerics such power. 15 of the 19 hijackers on the 9/11 were Saudi, as well as Osama bin Laden, son of a well-to-do family in the construction business. Yes, all of this has a lot to do with the history of American imperialism. Can we, like, do... Okay. In 2003, Al-Qaeda stopped being other people's problem as some of its terrorists carried out a wave of suicide bombings in Riyadh. Potential jihadists have been de-radicalized in specialist prisons through intensive lessons in correct Islam, plus money for a dowry and maybe even the gift of a Toyota. She's... whatever. No Saudi official will admit it on the record that the kingdom's terrorist problem might boil down to sexual frustration. This quote better be from someone Arabic who speaks Arabic and lives in an Arabic culture. Oh no, it's Robert Lacey, wrote in his book Inside the Kingdom in 2010. But if a social system bans hot-blooded young men from contact with the opposite sex during their most hot-blooded years, perhaps it's hardly surprising if some of them channel this frustration into violence. Jesus, you're really like... Christ almighty. Bored young men in the Gulf once turned to jihad, now they have Jimmy Carr making jokes about dildos. This is called progress. Oh my god. Yeah, I might not carefully read through all the rest of this. I'm not massively fussed. I think we've gotten the main thrust of it now, and at the point where she's just like defending incels' right to sex, basically, I like... Alright. Chat, I want to wrap up the stream, because it's 9:30, and I said I didn't want to go beyond there when I started. If you've been enjoying the stream, please consider paying for the stream. You can subscribe, watch here, or donate directly using Command Tip. You can also become a patron over at patreon.com/SophieFromMars. Let's have a quick bit of discussion of the article. I am... like... I think the main thing for me is the way that it's an ad in a way that she's not, like, properly aware of that, of what she's doing there by like showing off that there is an interesting debate about free speech and whether like edgy comedians can like push free speech in this like totalitarian regime or whatever. But there's also just so much here about like the nature of someone who, based on the previous article, seems like she considers herself centre-left. I know she considers herself a feminist, but her sympathies are just with men. Like, this is just actually so dire. And I don't like... it's not like I think that like feminism as a movement should like only be women, and like men don't get to be feminists. Like, we need to like have a broad movement for like cultural and social change, and like men need to actually earnestly believe in feminist principles rather than just like being, I don't know, like politically overrun and forced into a feminist society or something. Like, that's not real. But like, making it about like the male loneliness epidemic or frustrated young hot-blooded men or whatever, when like theocratic regimes have been propped up very deliberately as foreign policy decisions by the world superpower America, and the gender imbalance is produced by the forced labor class, by there being slavery in Saudi Arabia. I don't know. Sometimes pieces like this give me this sense of like, the person who reads this and sees no issue with it, do they not feel like they're going through like a theme park ride with like cardboard cutouts of spooky monsters to scare them or whatever? Tori Kabori says, I think that hits me right now is how misogynist it is, not just Orientalist and colonial. Yeah, absolutely. Like, she was just really excited to go see Louis C.K., and I don't really, like... She feels like there's an interesting point to make there. I don't think, like, there's that much of an interesting point to make there. Like, I just don't. Like, I think she's just produced an ad, and I don't think that she can see that at all. Yeah. If people have longer comments they want to leave on this, maybe go leave them on the diversity win. This supporter of women's sexual enslavement is a woman. Thank you, Tori Kabori. That's very funny. Midlove Marxus says she's on Louis' email list and actually buys his shitty comedy specials from his website. You can tell. Yes, but not because she enjoys them, so that she can make fun of them and how stupid they are, obviously. Yeah, leave any longer discussion you have on the VOD. VOD watchers, I love you so much. If you are watching the VOD, remember that you can support my work on Patreon or with all my links, which will be in the description. Oh my god, I still haven't figured out who's a good Twitch streamer. I am not going to raid anyone just now. I'm going to figure that out another time. I hope everyone has a great day. I'm going to go and get some dinner. Thanks for watching!